You can talk about industrialization in South Africa. They go like, oh yeah, when is lunch? So even on gas, this is massive. Nobody ever even told us that we are good looking. So whenever we perceive ourselves, we always perceive ourselves, I could be looking good, but you know what? We come from apartheid. We're always apologetic.
Is that where we get our so-called humility?
Thank you. And it's horrible. At an industrial level, you can't be humble.
King David Studio Podcast.
We've started this new thing. It's really a knowledge bank where it's speaking to different South Africans who have a very good sense of a lot of the problems we're having in our country. And we've decided to get a hold of, the word expert always comes with such a lot of responsibility. And he's an energy expert. It's Adil Nchabeleng, and we're really pleased to have him here. How are you, sir?
I'm good, and thank you so much.
Man, I'm glad you agreed to this process of gathering knowledge. And so we share with South Africans some of the problems that we're having, and we think some people somewhere are solving them, and we don't know how, and that's why it's important for us to have a chat. Let's talk about where Adil comes from. Where's home?
My home and background is from Limpopo, precisely born in the village of Nchabeleng, and then grew up in Leboahomu. From Leboahomu, then, migrated to the big city.
Yeah.
It was always a wonder coming to Joburg. Seeing
Really?
the big lights. I think that's where my fascination with electricity started.
Wow. So you
Coming into Johannesburg with the mainstream highway lights,
and then they all lit
Yeah, and
up.
they were all flooding on you, and it was just exciting time.
So Ntwana di Plaza 99.
Totally. Village boy, township boy in the middle of nowhere. Leboahomu, was a village, literally,
Yes.
but in the suburb. Right? So that's how we came up.
By
And we used to
Nchabeleng,
go to town,
Yes.
60 kilometers away.
that's
from
PLK.
home. Yeah, Polokwane,
Uh.
which was Pietersburg then. And it was such a thing, going into the city, coming out of really a camp. I mean, Leboahomu was a camp in the middle of nowhere. And really, we couldn't relate to much of the things. But it was always fascinating, seeing development, infrastructure, seeing the big city with all its melting pot. Yeah.
It's the times of Patudi.
At the time, yeah.
Many, many, many years ago.
Yeah, and very forward man. I mean, he was a really forward thinker and visionary. At his time, he was predicting the so-called rain. I mean, he was actually known for his last stint, which was how to make rain.
Oh,
Today,
yeah.
cloud seeding is a reality.
Wow.
In the 70s.
And now that's what we're doing now.
Cloud seeding.
Yes.
Yeah, so he was very visionary.
That's amazing.
And he created Leboahomu as his vision, by the way.
Yeah.
Because remember, Gampatlele was a village where he was brought up. And then he said, look, I want to create a parliament of Leboa at the time. And in that parliament, they needed to have a sort of a town or city that reflected that new reality. And they created Leboahomu out of that. It was a sort of a middle class suburb in a way.
It was modeled around, townships, really.
Totally so.
Yeah. From rural to, let's put in townships in the middle of all of this. Yeah.
So that's where we cut our teeth in terms of everything,
And your how did you end up coming to Joburg? Was it?
It was education.
Yeah.
At first, I came in for completing my education, and then I did that. From there, then I moved up into, I wanted to really be in Johannesburg. We came here with nothing. Coming out of Leboa, and we used to be referred to as the Baritza Leboa.
Of course. Has that changed?
No, it hasn't changed as yet. We still refer to, but I think we did achieve a lot.
Yeah.
Because coming into Johannesburg, it was always that aspect to say, what is my goal and purpose? And I had one objective. I wanted to dominate and actually be the it in South Africa using this big city, which is Johannesburg.
Was there specific interest in mind? As you said, that big lights got you interested in electricity. But was it, how clear was that vision or that dream?
At the time, it was fuzzy because I didn't even really understood much in terms of the economy, the link of economy to infrastructure to energy, the aspect of economic development and growth. And politics, yes, we were, briefly, and I was still a young student at the time, and I was extremely active in the side of it, politically very vocal. But again, it was still the 90s, 80s, end of 80s and the 90s coming into Johannesburg. And then we stayed in the city when they were just doing that whole, after releasing of Mandela.
94 and all of that.
Right up to 94. I came in before 94 into Johannesburg. And I stayed in the city within Johannesburg. at the time when there was still that transition. Exciting phase, everything was coming in. I mean, I remember.
Exciting and uncertain.
Yeah, McDonald's was still starting off.
Jeez.
We used to buy a bag at 13 rands for a whole meal at the time.
The whole thing.
Yeah,
And a drink.
And a drink. So being a student, you're looking forward to coming out of school or weekend. And you go chill in McDonald's on Small Street.
Yeah.
It's no longer the same anymore now.
What kind of life were you seeing for yourself in terms of career? What did you see in your vision?
I never saw myself working, unfortunately. I've always been a person who saw myself as an independent entrepreneur, somebody who didn't really have an interest in 8 to 5. I never really wanted to work for anyone.
Where did that come from? That sense of...
I grew up seeing a lot of people working. I mean, in Loadshedding, it was a civil servant township, literally. All the people who worked in government, and they will be given these houses where they'll be sharing a house and they'll have rooms. And that's one of the things I think that put me off from work.
Really?
I'm not going to grow up to live with other 3 guys in a 3-bedroom house and we're sharing a room and your whole life is all sort of compacted in this one bedroom.
Yes.
And they had, amazing things, some of them. They would have a music system, which we used to look forward to. They would have a bedroom set with those 3 things, like your
That's it.
headboard and those things.
That's it. The fridge.
Yeah, and the fridge. That was the ultimate epic achievement, but I didn't have that in mind.
But you must have had a reference then, because we tend, our knowledge, the scope of our universe is based on our knowledge and references.
Absolutely.
So what references did you have that said there's a world beyond this tiny circle?
I think I traveled a lot, astrally as well. And I traveled a lot in terms of my own, moving. I had a dad who was like a mover and a shaker at some point, and he would move a lot. So from time to time, I would find myself traveling with him, and I would see the bigger world outside Loadshedding.
Yeah.
And I knew I was going to travel. I mean, before I even had a driver's license, which was a big thing for everybody, code 11, 14. I was not interested in those things. I just wanted to have a passport.
Oh,
yeah. At the time,
you had a much bigger.
I'm not interested in driver's license for what?
Yeah,
I'll get somebody to drive. The passport I wanted.
Your dream was much bigger.
Yeah, so I said, look, if I get a passport, I think I've got And I used to read a lot of Mills and Booms.
Yes,
novels at the time, which was quite unheard of.
And it would take you out of your normal setting.
Yeah, you would hear the experiences of people drinking amazing cocktails, living amazing lifestyles, because they used to be very descriptive in those novels and stuff. And again, magazines, gave one an exposure and,
That's amazing.
So I think that's one of the things that, inspired me. And again, the political background. Remember, my family was very politically involved. They were at the time literally almost the royalties of politics, among the top 10.
Yeah.
Susulu, Lutuli, you had the Nchabeleng's.
That's it,
That part of it is what actually got me excited. They were mostly outside in, one was in Robben Island. Some of them were in Robben Island several times.
Your knowledge base was
and we're in
wide.
exile, and when you ask where in exile as a young person, they'll tell you various countries. And so it got one captivated.
Yeah.
You wanted to be out and explore the world.
And your education, what is it? When you came to Joburg to study?
I was always interested in business.
Yeah.
And I'm still interested in business. I studied a lot of sciences, which is economics, mathematics at the time, and then I studied physics. And business was my interest. But economics was where I excelled at.
Okay.
And I still do in a way. And that's why I went into the analysis of everything. I'm studying currently in terms of a master's, where I'm focusing on energy as one of my majors and stuff. And I've done other things. I really tried my hand in law.
Yeah.
At some point, I didn't see myself,
Yeah.
But
what got you interested? Something must have drawn you.
Everybody was doing law.
Oh.
And I just thought probably I argue a lot. So
Mainly peer pressure.
yeah, so I couldn't make it.
Well, not bad. It it wasn't drugs.
So I studied law halfway and I got bored.
Yeah.
I literally just completely abandoned the whole thing. And I thought, what? I don't see myself in those grey corridors in courts and spending all day chasing around and defending people I don't really like, for that matter. So,
half the time you don't like them.
So I just decided, listen, I'm going into business.
Yeah.
And I was always hustling anyway. While I was in high school, in my first job. And then I was fortunate enough to land a gig in a research company.
Okay.
That research company literally gave me the exposure to what I was.
To what? Analysis,
understanding, the aspect of economics, in its broader field, from its science as a specialty. And then again, getting to understand how major corporations are actually structured.
Yeah.
Because when you start doing analytical, work, you start looking at the fundamentals of what makes this company strong. You get to understand the fundamentals of it in there. So that's where I came in. And then after that, I went into investment banking.
Yeah.
From my research basis into investment banking, it's a similar.
Absolutely.
It all complements.
It's a natural progression of.
And in investment banking, that is when I saw even a far much more bigger, broader world, exciting lifestyle.
Yeah.
You live it up to the best.
Yes, of course. It changes.
Wearing expensive cufflinks at the time. I don't do anymore. I mean, I'm a politician. I'm an activist. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So coming out of investment banking. And I realized that, look, lovely space, but I still miss the aspect where I needed to serve my people.
Yeah.
And I had to go back into social entrepreneurship and create things. In banking, you get exposed to a lot of other people's money. You make decisions of billions in tunes on other people's money, and you make them lots of money at the same time, incredible returns, but it's not for you. So I felt, okay, fine. For me, I think, going back to Hochereza on the street.
But what draws you to Hochereza? Because it's not easy. You can easily get an easy job that pays you a decent salary and drive a Mercedes-Benz and live in a double-story house with a pool and you're good.
I don't like working for anyone.
Yeah.
I've always had a resistance towards work as in being an employee in a setup whereby you had to do an 8 to 5 because I grew up highly politicized.
Yeah.
In the politicized environment, independence, especially self-independence, as well as being able to be self-sufficient was critical, where I could make decisions. And again, I made my numbers very early on. I realized, look, my salary can pull this amount when I was working. And then when I went into an independent environment, I realized I could multiply the same time, the same energy and effort, but I could multiply it and quadruple it when it came to an aspect of doing it on my own. So I had to learn systems. I had to learn how to literally be smart in creating products, services, as well as solutions. And that gave me the horizon to get into business from a social entrepreneurship point of view.
What have you created so far that we can almost immediately know what it is?
Look, I started at the time, and it wasn't relatively unknown. Before the age of the internet, there was something called, where you could do termination of local calls into international destinations.
Yeah.
And at the time, the only provider, I think, who was dominant was Eskom. And I had a hybrid system, which was an IT-based hybrid system, technology servers, a bit of code in it, an aspect of software which drove. And then we had a termination network, which we ran into conflict at the time when Eskom realized that we were actually chowing up their chunk of margins. They actually took us on. But anyway, that's what we created. We created a system that was able to generate local calls and create an international network.
Okay.
Where we could terminate calls anywhere. And for that, we were able to create our own revenue.
Yes.
And we were incredible. I mean, we made obscene amount of monies at the time.
Of course.
And we really created a lot of job opportunities and everything. I was just the creative behind it. I would come up with creative ideas and then put it up with teams of people and then have outsourcing of this whole ideas through institutions. I never wanted to be part of anything in the forefront.
Yes. Why not?
I'm always going to be the conceptual person behind the scene.
You don't want to be Elon Musk and be in the front.
Yeah. Even Elon Musk doesn't really take active role.
No.
He doesn't run things day to day. He just dreams it out and others takes on the responsibility and gets a team. So I've always been good at teams.
Yeah.
And I still continue with the same aspect of it.
Your interest in energy and how you've embraced it as part of your life. One, where does that come from? And where did it get, what's the word? Forced such that it became a big force in your life?
I used to blow up a lot of gadgets in my family.
So it's not cool.
It came from, it came. Wow. I used to blow up a lot of gadgets, televisions, equipment. And then eventually I became the fixing guy.
Yes, of course.
Whenever something broke down, your stove, they would call me at an electrical level.
Yeah.
So that's where I got the interest. And then it just moved further to becoming somebody who was looking at it at a broader level. Because I started analyzing South Africa, its potential and it's sort of stumbling blocks, challenges. And when we started looking closely, we found that energy was actually the center of it.
Yeah.
In any economy, if you don't have energy, you cannot produce sufficient energy. You have a problem in terms of your GDP. So our GDP is mainly designed around energy production, which means generation. The lesser energy you generate as a nation, the lesser GDP you're going to generate. So the decline in South Africa's economy, we've mapped it across, for the years that it was declining and for the years that it was actually, increasing.
You're saying there's a correlation.
Totally so. It's all energy based.
Yeah.
The amount of kilowatt hours you produce gives you the output at an economic level. It's a bit complex because people don't relate to it in that sense. They just see load shedding and they get very upset and
that's it.
Get worked up.
And then there's power back and we move on.
Absolutely so. But when you start looking at your GDP, the most advanced GDP economies, countries, regions in the world have the most abundant energy at levels whereby it's almost free.
Yes.
They give it away. I mean, in China.
Because we'd rather you have it than not.
You can't talk energy in China of saying we're going to charge you for electricity. It's like, water is already flowing in a river. What is your problem? We need to use this thing.
Yes.
The only impact on it is they have to use it. That's why they are so highly industrialized. They are so highly advanced. They've got their highest level of GDP. They have got their highest level of development. You go to the Middle East. What makes their economy? Energy as well.
Yeah.
It's based on mineral resources, it's based on petroleum, and then it's based on the production of abundant energy in their region. So if you don't track the production of energy and you're not able to create an energy basin, you're not going to be developed. The reason why, if you fly over Africa, by the way, just take a flight. Look at the entire continent. The only time you start seeing lights is when you depart out of the African continent, by the way.
Sure.
On the surface.
Yeah.
But when you're flying over Africa, all you see is darkness. And you'll see pockets of light over here.
Yes, like small
countries
towns
that you're flying over.
Yeah.
And that's when you see the level of development. The more energy we produce, the more developed we will become as a society. And that's why we are still in this quagmire of a developing. South Africa was highly developed at some point, but only for whites. When we increased the capacity of access for black people,
essentially when we increase demand.
Yeah, there was a massive demand and there was no supply, by the way, because the power stations were not built at the time, which needed to. There were only a limited power stations in South Africa that powered the historically apartheid era, industrialization. Then we came in and did the almost opposite. Didn't build power stations. We just dragged cable and plugged it in to make sure that the last person who has no electricity gets to get electricity, but not building brand new power stations.
You're saying we came with an extension cord.
Absolutely.
Nothing more.
Yeah, and then it was very messy extension cord.
Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't anything well done probably, and we just drew out of the system and we didn't literally replenish it with new capacity.
Let's talk about the history of the South African grid.
Yeah.
And where and how it's the depletion and the challenge that we have now are pretty obvious to a lot of us. There's someone who's going to be watching this and they'll have load shedding while they're watching. So that problem is so obvious. But the history, give us what you know in terms of the history of the South African grid.
Look, the South African electricity environment was created first. It was something called the Energy Supply Commission. Before then, remember South Africa is the second in the world, by the way, of a country which had electricity and at the time, which was in Kimberley, when they were doing the Kimberley, diamond mining process. The first town in the world with the second city first was New York, and then came in South Africa, which was Kimberley, and that whole environment infrastructure, because they needed a lot of electricity to dig down into that big hole
to get to the diamonds. Yeah,
and it was the most important thing in the world. That diamond industrialization, and then secondary to it, then they created Johannesburg, which became the secondary city.
Gold
that became because of gold.
Yeah,
and that is how the city between Kimberley and Johannesburg became related. And that's how we got WITS. WITS was the school which was actually created to become an engineering school to support the diamond as well as the gold mining industry and industrialization. And towns were always created around mining, industrialization, technology and everything.
Yeah.
And that's how it became what it is. So the Electricity Supply Commission, which was started at the time, I think 1923, evolved. Before then, it was individual power stations were owned by companies that were generating electricity
Okay.
independently.
So you would make your own power and use it, and that's it.
And
if you
everybody will have.
If you power the city where you are, that's
Total
what
generation.
happens.
Yeah, it was generator mechanism. You create your own generation. You do your own thing. You sell it. You're able to plug it into that miniature grid at the time because there was not a national grid. And then when they started creating the multiple power basins as well as generation power stations, it then became a need to say, how do we integrate it within the context of making sure that it powers the entire economy of South Africa? Because remember, we were a mining export-based economy.
Yeah.
We would mine, put on rail,
Send it out.
off.
Yeah.
And at the time, rail was critical. It needed electricity. We were not using coal for rail at the time. So that electricity power line created the whole thing. And then the rail line created now the extension of the exact energy generation in South Africa. And we experimented a lot. South Africa became one of the most advanced in terms of scientific research, production of electricity, new mechanisms of actually distributing electricity over long distances. Those pylons that you see was actually one of the mega products that came out of South Africa.
Wow.
And they were highly advanced. But again, it was because it was well supported by the state. It was that drive to make it happen. So there's a lot we can blame about the evilness of apartheid.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the industrialization and how it was created, they were not interested in serving the underserved, which is the villages, the townships that were emerging. They were only providing it to the minority population, which was white, their cities. And that is why they had European-style cities in South Africa.
Yeah.
You would think you're in the middle of New York when you were in small street.
In Johannesburg.
Yeah, in Johannesburg. Yes. The hotels, the lifestyle, the setup, the connection between Johannesburg itself as a hub with the major airports and the various cities around the country. So that's how it was created.
Do you look at it with glee and you marvel at what the apartheid government has created when it comes to the grid?
No, you cannot but marvel. You cannot. Look, politics are an element whereby we have to be truthful and honest. From a engineering, technology, from a science and development level, the apartheid government literally showed dust among everybody. They were the leading, not just the apartheid.
And in the world.
The British were part of it.
Yes, of course.
Remember, they enabled apartheid to happen. So in the world, what they did at the time, in terms of really being geniuses on creating systems and technology and the innovation and the research, they championed it. So they created things that we as the black leadership, government, as well as people who came in to take over, should have said, guys, let's pause. What's available here? What can we do and take over and actually make sure that we accelerate instead of decelerating it? And I don't know what happened. Most of them just came in and started destroying, cutting down everything. Whatever was in structure, they did very well with literally creating the Eskom, because Eskom was created postly after the new apartheid, the end of apartheid. And then it was actually consolidated into a proper legislation. It became a proper company thereafter and everything. Before then, it was an NGO, by the way, as Electricity Supply Commission. Yeah, yes. It was a pure NGO that would buy up all the power generation and then created the distribution, which is now the long distance transmission line, distribution network. And then at municipal levels or towns or whatever district, they will then create what you call distribution, where they take the high voltage electricity, step it down, and make sure that they can produce required voltage, which can go into the feeding of the city. You can't take that high voltage, 700 plus.
You have to reduce it and make it less.
Reduce it and then distribute it for utility basis, basis. That's how it was created. So people, when they talk electricity, they just see the lights. They don't understand that this particular light and energy we're enjoying could be pulled from as far as Kahora Basa.
Yes.
That 1 millisecond, because it's an atom.
It's
an atom. Yeah, it's an atom. Energy is an atom, and that atom creates the magic that we enjoy today. So it's really fascinating when you get into the gist of it. And most people just only want to see, of course, Andre Reuter is irritating when he was,
we'll get
no
there.
shading on us, but
we'll get there. I want to go back to the small point you're making about how at some point South Africa was one of the leading electrical producers in the world. Absolutely. Essentially, you're saying there's a strong knowledge base because we don't lose it overnight. generationally, we must have passed it on to other generations, this knowledge that we've acquired. But it seems let me ask it simply. Do we still have that knowledge base?
Most of it has migrated. There's there's expertise, there's capability, but it's now in pockets and sizes.
Yeah.
Eskom still retains within its current employment complement a lot of that expertise because they know the bolts and nuts of the power stations. But when that generation completely goes, you're going to have a major vacuum.
Are we at risk of having that vacuum?
No, not at risk. We're already in a mess.
Yeah.
Currently, the load shedding is an indication that there is a vacuum of expertise. There's a vacuum of knowledge. And at Eskom's executive level, there's a total vacuum. There's a total gap. You have just emotional people who are not really realistic on the fundamentals. It's a balls and nuts business. You have to be a spanner person to understand how...
You have to know it.
Yeah, how a power station works, how coal gets into a power station. From a power station, it gets crushed, put it into the feeding of your, what do you call it, your burning, where you do your turbine, you do all of other technology. And then from there, it's pushed out into the turbines to create the necessary combination of water and the steam that is produced.
Is it a complicated exercise?
Huge. No, it's an engineering feat. Yeah, it's an engineering feat. I mean, you're running a turbine with blades that, if anybody could go in there within seconds, they'll be
crushed.
They'll be messed.
Yeah,
you won't exist. And they are able to produce that turbine capacity that then propels your power generation, that creates the necessary atoms that we call electricity, and from there it bits it out into the infrastructure, which is the transmission lines. Yeah, and then from the transmission lines, it sends it across the nation. So it's an engineering feat, which I think, again, we're too humble as Africans. Certain things we don't. I mean, look, take for instance this. I mean, clumsy Europe or whatever. Small little things, they make an incredible thing out of it.
Yes.
The ability to just boil water for them is like an amazing thing.
Of course.
In South Africa, I mean, we've got power stations that does the most incredible, amazing things. And when
are we still leading technology-wise?
In terms of innovation, no.
Yeah.
No, we're not leading. We lost that leading edge after 1994 when there was a neglect in terms of building brand new power stations. South Africa, up to 1990, had the capacity to build multiple line power stations in terms of, they used to call them the 6 packs, the 6 units, development at the time, which would create for you the power stations that we have today.
So essentially you're saying you're doing them in small packs.
You have to do it, yeah. So one power station has units in it, and each unit is replication of the other unit. And then it produces a certain amount of megawatts. Okay. And then that megawatts is then pushed out into the grid.
So we stopped doing that?
Stopped it completely. We lost a lot of capability, because to build it is a science on its own. It's a capability, it's an expertise. A lot of people went overseas, and then we started bringing in a lot of expertise from overseas in order to replace. I mean, Eskom, every component in Eskom is over 1.2 million component items list.
So quotation thing is ridiculous.
That's why there's so much money in Eskom. Everybody is actually having a feast out of it.
Wow.
Just providing the coal. I mean, it starts with mining. Mining produces the coal. The coal is then transported and then stored over at a site in Eskom. From the site, it's then brought into a conveyor. The conveyor takes it into, the crushing process. And then from there, then they take it into the boilers. From the boilers, and then it moves up into the turbine situation, where the boiler now has produced enough electricity, enough energy, heat. Yeah. Yes. It's all heat based. Then that heat is then pushed into turbines, and then turbines are able to power, your mega generators that are able to produce the electricity. And that's how it works.
Are we when you look at the history of our country, that there's an element of luck, or maybe right place, right time. We have a lot of coal, and we have a lot of diamonds and gold. Yeah. And we had these things complement each other, because you need the coal to power the energy that enables you to dig down and so forth. So clearly these are elements that worked well together at some point. But are we one of those countries that you were left with a shop by your dad and you completely messed it up? Yeah, are we a perfect example of that?
We're a perfect example of those that inherited bottle stores and butcheries and really didn't know the mechanism, and based on that collapse of not understanding what we inherited created the current situation we're sitting with. Because
Yeah.
post 1990, there should have been an effort to build brand new power stations. For instance, talk about nuclear. It's a no talk. Everybody everybody doesn't want to speak nuclear.
They get hot under the collar.
Yeah, but South Africa was the second country in the world that mastered the nuclear science and technology.
I know. Interesting. I know. Interesting. There's a movie, an old movie where they're talking about the villain was building nuclear bombs, rather.
Yeah.
And they say there's 2 South African scientists and a British scientist. We know exactly what they're doing. They're building a nuclear bomb.
Absolutely.
The reference to South Africa dates far back as that South Africans knew how to build
to 1960.
this.
Yeah.
We were able to do this.
The science of it, up to scratch, because in terms of the yellow powder, which becomes what created the nuclear, industrialization, which is what created the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, part of it contributed in destroying Japan. Unfortunately, but it was not a South African decision.
Of course.
They just produced the nuclear,
The elements. Yeah.
The plutonium and all the other thing. And then from the uranium was then moved over to the US, and then the US did further enrichment process. And that enrichment was then as an exchange from the 1940 to 1960. Once they finished that atomic bomb exercise, South Africa had the capability, many reactors here and stuff. Then South Africa requested the permission to do its own enrichment, which was enrichment in terms of weaponry, enrichment in terms of electricity generation. And that's how they created the reactors.
Yeah.
Your reactor is as similar as your current situation of a power generation.
True.
The reactors were used for technological purpose, for scientific reasons, and you needed a lot of expertise. And they created that environment. And out of that, you have the most incredible knowledge. You have to be a scientist. You have to know your mathematics, physics. You have to know your sciences, and you have to understand. Even an ordinary welder, welder, has to get into advanced welding capability.
Not just.
You can weld underwater. You can weld in the middle of the rain. You can weld during a storm. You can that capability, because to build a nuclear reactor, you need extensive materials. You cement, you steel. You need to have, a dome as well as infrastructure that can withstand an earthquake, for instance, at, a Richter 8 scale, whatever it is. So you have to understand that.
Jeez.
And that for me was...
And we had that.
We have it. We still have.
We still have that.
Yeah,
knowledge.
the reactors are still running.
Yes.
We have now Kubek in Cape Town. And now there's the talk of a new site which is coming up in East London, not East London, Port Elizabeth area, where if they do the new power station on a nuclear basis, it will be yet another scientific feat. And we had the people, modular setup where they could do now the small 200, 400, megawatts, people modular, where they didn't need all the other materials they needed before to build mega.
Yeah.
They could build it in smaller modular sizes, and those modular sizes would not be dependent too much on elements of water and other things, and as well as what is currently being done in the nuclear science. So South Africa was advanced, but lost the edge. But again, the leaders were misinformed.
What about their inheritance?
Yeah, they were misinformed, because half of what we have was dismantled. They kept on being informed that you don't need this. Mandela, the first thing when President Mandela got into power, he was told to decommission the current nuclear enrichment program in terms of weaponry, high enrichment to a lower enrichment level, which means from high, which is weapon scale, industrial scale, to a low enrichment level, which is just to make sure that it can power, its reactor.
Yeah,
that is it.
And that's it.
There's no more element of now taking the uranium to the next stage of its processing, where it's now weapons as well as a war grade level. If you look at what Palindawa is today, Palindawa is currently in the border of Northwest, as well as
Atteridgeville,
right?
Yeah.
And Pretoria. Do you know that entire infrastructure was connected to the main arterial points?
Yeah.
Underground, on land, and on air.
Really?
All of it was connected to Pretoria, Swartkop Airport, they had en route where you can actually travel from Pelindaba undisturbed for military reasons, right?
It probably means they're
Still there, but most of it has been completely dilapidated.
Yes.
And then they had a sort of dedicated airstrip line, which anything could fly between Pelindaba and Sarkop, and from Sarkop it could fly any way out because of its importance. Remember the warheads at the time, which was your nuclear weapon warheads, were moved from, once they are manufactured, they were moved, and you couldn't see it. They were all moved underground.
Yeah.
Up to Pretoria, Swartkop. From Swartkop, they were, and then airlifted out. And then they were moved again. It was an incredible military feat.
So you're saying there's probably a tunnel under Atteridgeville.
There is still, and there were roads, by the way.
Yes,
there was
of course. It wasn't
a landing strips. Yeah,
yes.
There's a point between Lodiam and Atteridgeville where it's a dedicated, airstrip, where nothing moves in that thing. They could land the highest Antonov, which is one of the biggest aeroplane in the world. They could land it there, and it was a strip, an airline strip. So I don't know. I don't think our leaders understood
the size of what they were getting.
I can't blame them for now, because again, we came out of bushes. I mean, if I didn't research, I didn't understand the environment, I wouldn't be understanding this incredible, scientific feat.
Interesting. We did a video for a government department that required us to shoot, all these interesting things. And one of them was that very plant.
Yeah.
We shot it from a distance. The scale of that thing is just incredible.
Amazing.
It's
inside and outside.
Because we've driven past it many, many times. We never cared, really. It's until you now have an interest and you shoot, because we had a camera droning up from a distance shooting it. And it was like, what? Wow. This thing is just incredible. So I guess, what does it do now? What do we do with it now, Pelindaba?
Currently, it was used until recently for scientific research. It has a small reactor.
Yeah.
It's about 20 megawatts reactor. And it was used for scientific purposes. And it was still the leading, by the way, because there was a lot of scientific, breakthroughs and innovation and technology in materials. And one of the leading cancer technology, which I think it was isotopes or something, which they were using for cancer patients, was actually manufactured in Pelindaba at the Nexa nuclear plant.
Yeah.
From there, they would actually then airlift it off to any country in the world, but it had to be used within 24 hours for that particular purpose. So South Africa was the second supplier of that technology, and they made billions out of it. And the change of ministers between, unfortunately, the ministry at the time, when they had a change of ministers, there was a selling of that part technology. And there was a destruction with just political meddling and not understanding the issues. They defunded and actually de-supported the program to a point where it's almost at a standstill. The plant itself, it's an incredible plant. It's one of its own kind in the world. If you go in there, which I have had many occasions of touring it,
I wonder if they allow ordinary folks to come and check it out.
You can,
yeah,
but you have to have security clearance and other things for obvious reasons.
Of course.
And not only that, the plant is created in such a way that it's an industrial complex on its own, and it's a key point, which means it's highly guarded and highly protected.
Yeah.
Not as it was in the time when it was under the apartheid government, which nuclear enrichment on high level of nuclear enrichment. Now it's at a lower scale. Right, so they produce basic products and everything, but it still makes a lot of money, billions. But it was then they had political interferences, and when they fired, I think Kelvin Kem, who was the lead chairman and who used to formerly work at Nexa as a scientist, they destroyed the entire thing, and they started replacing board members after another, and I think they fired the CEO as well at the time with Kevin Kem. And it was just political, but it was not South African-based politics. There was a lot of international interference.
Well, it's an international product.
Exactly.
There's a lot of interest.
Yeah, so that international interference costed us economic development and advancement. And as I said, our administrators, parliamentarians, our executive, which is ministers as well as from the head of state, the administration, they don't pay direct attention into these issues.
Yeah.
We talk about it at articles level, but at the real fundamental part of it, if you had an opportunity, take your kid into nuclear science. It's the most absolute science. There's no any other better science than nuclear science in the world.
Yeah.
Even if they're not going to be nuclear scientists,
yeah. But what it opens their eyes.
Exposure of it takes you to another level. Most nuclear physicists in South Africa are highly sought after in the world. At any level, they can land a job, they can land a career, and they are the only employable people at any level around the world.
Yes.
At a higher salary, After actuaries is nuclear scientists. And going forward into the future, they will even surpass the actuarial science as nuclear scientists being the most highly paid, highly sought after because of the demand of nuclear currently.
Of course.
With the current shortage of various, they are moving away from carbon, coal. They're moving away from all the fossil fuels. They are getting into the other advanced, technologies. Your nuclear would be one of the green alternatives and solutions. Then there will be the solars, which is your solar, which will be your
wind and all of that.
And other technologies.
Wind,
the one that tops it all is nuclear.
Nuclear versus coal. We are a coal country.
Absolutely.
Very strong historically and probably in the future for many, many years to come. If you were a leader, a minister of energy in South Africa, with Gwede Mantashe, with a much more fitting jacket than that.
Okay. Yeah. On Gwede's.
With a much more fitting jacket. Which would you support?
Look, I would bet on nuclear all the way. I would bet on coal. And what we talk about coal is the new coal. It's called high efficiency, low emission.
Okay.
You're still in doubt with coal. Coal is going to be there for the next 2,000 years. Even the current proven reserves of 400 years of coal basin is just an underestimate.
Wow.
There is massive. Coal is available in the world, by the way, not just in South Africa. Coal is available. So, again, let's go back historically. Why was coal an option? The Afrikaners at the time discovered that when they got sanctions, when they were sanctioned against the world and they were dependent on some of the technologies, they discovered that, but we have coal. And this coal can become a multiple product and resource production. They produce everything out of coal.
Yes.
Crude oil. They produced gas out of coal. They produced, fertilizer, big industry. They produced agricultural, chemicals out of coal. They produced electricity out of it. They produced steel out of it. They produced industrialization out of it. So the link between coal history and how it empowered our economy is they found this most easily mineable, available resource, which is coal. And out of it, they could do multiple applications and readily available for nothing because it was cheap. It's still cheap. Yeah. It's still available in abundance.
It's cheap to dig. It's cheap to transport. Yes.
Even the current complicated coal rates right now, which are done at a profit level, are not really justifying in terms of the availability of the resource because nobody pays for the coal. Like as you go to Saudi Arabia, for every ounce of crude you produce out of their wells, crude oil as well as oil wells, they charge you for that crude. Really? That's why you pay per gallon.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You pay per...
Of course. It translates to what we end up paying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in South Africa, they don't charge you. The government doesn't charge you per coal ton.
Wow.
They say
How do they
coal
charge?
is available. Take it out. You just then pay the taxes on it, not the extraction.
Wow.
In other countries, they would have used their coal as a means of actually creating their sovereign wealth, like you will find in every other world country.
So we're not doing that. We're not extracting as much value from the coal that we have in our...
Not much. Yeah. Currently, it's just used for electricity. And very soon, part of it is local consumption at Eskom. Then very soon, even the export side of it is going to go away because they are
very few people are wanting coal.
You should use coal. You should clean coal and make sure that coal is environmentally friendly. And I know a lot of people disagree.
Can coal be environmentally?
It is environmentally friendly when the technologies are applied. You know, there is something called a HELE, which is high efficiency, low emission technology, which you use. You bring it into your power station. Let's say the current power station, which was producing emissions. To reduce your emissions, you bring in units within the current power stations that are going to clean the emissions levels as well as the calcification of that coal, and it will break it down to making it environmentally acceptable. But we are prevented to even entertaining such ideas.
Why?
The current IRP in South Africa allows for actually retrofitting all the power stations with HELE-based units, which means you go to Eskom and say, okay, fine, we can see you're still using the older technology. In some of the older technologies, instead of just maintaining. Let's build a new unit that's going to be hella standard, which is low emissions, almost literally carbon-less, and you'll still produce electricity cleaner, and that clean electricity then can be available. But there is a resistance towards that.
Jeez.
And
why would they be resistant? Something that sounds obvious in terms of its solution.
No, multinationals are not interested in South Africa's sovereignty.
That's it.
Yeah, it's about money.
Yeah.
South Africa has to borrow a lot of money to produce electricity. The fact that we didn't borrow, we were electricity independent and sovereign, which means we had our own electricity.
How recent was that?
This is since 2010. I mean, remember from 2010, they signed up the largest amount of independent power stations. And those independent power producers were not South African owned, were programs that was implemented by the World Bank out of its ambition to say, break up the concentration of state monopoly on generation and industry. It makes sense if you're a highly advanced society. For instance, China, where you have the state being involved in every level of the economy. But in South Africa, we're not even at that level.
No.
We're not even 1% of China's capacity.
Not at all.
So why would you need to dismantle this capability? And not only that, why would you need us to become energy dependent when you bring in any other sources? We don't have gas. The only gas we could produce was now the coal gas, which was methane bed.
Which we don't anymore.
We don't have anymore.
Yeah.
It's no longer mined. It's no longer used as an option. The current coal is going to just lie there. They won't even be able to produce methane bed out of it. And that's what's happening. And you don't have the ability to import a lot of gas. If you have to import it, you have to bring specialized technology, vessels, which is ships. And you have to do a lot of facility infrastructure for one, tanking it, storage, and then from there,
distributing.
Distribute it by transportation of any more pipeline, or you have to move it by truck. And then from there, you have to have other technology to literally now move it from its condensed state to a compressed state.
And that's too much.
I'm talking about opportunity. And these guys don't see the value chain. You can talk about industrialization in South Africa. They go like, oh yeah, when is lunch? So even on gas, I mean, this is massive.
So you're saying opportunities that we still have as a country or in that sector are incredible.
Even on renewables.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the only condition is it must be done locally. Don't bring in anything overseas.
Let's talk about the simple factors of what we're dealing with as South Africans now. South Africans are experiencing a mess in terms of their everyday lives, particularly when it comes to power.
Absolutely.
Where is the problem? In simple terms, and where exactly? I remember in one of a conversation I've had with you was it's really a matter of we're just not producing enough power to give to people. But why are we failing to do something that seems so simple?
The issue currently is at power stations. The power stations are tripping at levels and volumes that are unimaginably manageable. You cannot have, for instance, 15,000 megawatts of an entire blackout of a power station. Because when the power station blacks out, which means the unit goes down, you're not producing anything out of that unit. And you're losing the power that is demanded in the grid. So if South Africa on an ordinary given day wants 25,000 megawatts, and your power stations are saying that they can produce only 20,000, you're having a 5,000 shortage. Where is the shortage coming in from when you have a capacity for that demand? It's because your units in your power stations are down.
Yes.
So the problem of Eskom's load shedding, current power blackouts, particularly in townships, which they experience power blackouts, not load shedding. You'll have a township blacked out for 2 weeks at a given time. There's no power, right? Is because power stations are not functioning at their optimum level. They are not producing electricity at its required capacity, which means if a power station is designed to make, say, 2,000 megawatts, that power station is most likely producing 900 to 800 megawatts.
Why is that?
2,000. Because its units are down, major components break down. There's a whole lot of processes that are not followed.
Is it a maintenance issue?
It's a maintenance issue.
Yeah.
It's like your car. It needs to run efficiently. If you don't do your regular servicing and refurbishment and rebuilding, you're not going to have an efficient car. So we ought to go back to the old science. How the apartheid state maintained this power plants. Remember, they were actually, at the time when they were faced with major sanctions, they had to become internally reliant.
Of course, yeah.
They produced every component, by the way.
Was produced
locally. under OEM agreements, which means original equipment manufacturers agreed that, listen, since we have this problem, we're going to give you the rights, we're going to give you the ability to do it in yourself. We will still be partners. We will still do licensing. We will still do processing and making sure that the standards are adhered to. But you will be able. That's how Eskom was great. It had companies, it had manufacturers, it had fabricators. It had all required technology, including the software technology and everything else was produced locally, and was done in a local sense where if something broke down, you don't have to wait for it from overseas or wherever.
There's Fantonder down the road.
We've got all the fabricators. We've got all the lined up factories that are producing for Eskom. We've got all the lined up SMEs that are producing whatever is required, whether it's cabling, harnessing, whatever. They were all there.
So it changed.
It changed. And we're talking up to the garage level manufacturer.
Wow.
Where a guy would be sitting in his 1 or 2 garage
and he's able to do a component this size and it's needed.
That's how it was. That's how HSRC, that's why the likes of CSIR were able to produce the technology required to power South Africa's economy. The scientific engine houses in South Africa. You have here, right here in Randburg, by the way, just inside Randburg on the main road, before you get to, I think, just before you get to Virgin Active, there's a huge scientific research base where you can bring any material and metals or whatever. They will create for you a process. It's an agency of government.
Yes.
But very few people know. They've got even their own almost mega power station line, where they could produce their own electricity and be an independent, research, unit. But we don't know. And this is where we cannot continue as black people.
I'm listening to you and I sit back and say, we can't, with everything that we had that was given to us, in essence, we all this inheritance, and now we don't have any of that at all. I guess the advantage of a sanctioned country is that you become self-sufficient. One thing I've learned about the Brazilians is that they don't need you.
Absolutely.
They're good because there's enough here.
It's all there.
It's all here. And why is it that we have failed to do that? And I know your answer is very political, but I'm interested in finding out, why is it that we failed to do something that sounds so basic? Like you never need to go to Woolies because you can plant your own cabbage.
Africans have a tendency to blame others.
Yeah.
It starts there. We're not an adventurous people because there's an element of lethargy in our ability to see things the way they're supposed to be. And if you start shooting out and becoming different, you get labeled. It starts there. So we fail at making scientific advancement. We fail at making scientific breakthroughs, at even attempting at a scientific level. Because by now, you should have had thousands of young people flooding those power stations as learners, as artisan, whatever, spanner, anything, to understand the mechanisms, right? We are not a people, and this is about black people, us. We don't have the drive to be so inquisitive, to see about our development. That's why we run an organization called Transform RSA, that we have to transform ourselves into better beings, not... you can't have a flood of young people sitting in townships, all of them confused. All of that they're waiting for is airtime and grants. And then you score ponyana on the weekend with some music to jive to. That's where we've lacked.
Yeah.
You look at our people, and you look at even the leaders. They're produced out of those townships.
Of course,
they're produced out of those villages. They're coming out of this peri-urban suburban environment, which already produced a situation whereby we have leaders who are not capable to interpret their environment.
Can't read the room.
They cannot read a room.
Yeah.
Of course, they can pretend that they understand, but really the fundamentals is they don't know. The Minister of Energy right now is attacked, Gwede Mantashe, unfortunately so, on the basis that he's one of the few most capable minister who says, guys, we have this wealth. We've got the coal. We've got the nuclear.
We get all of this.
If we just do this right, we are going to be an incredible economy. But now
we might have gas in our oceans.
We even have gas. I mean, Total is doing exploration already. In terms of the Eastern, in the Cape side of it, on exploration of gas. There is gas. There's no doubt about it. We know. But the politics of it are emotional. And the fact that African leaders have this capacity that they must either be first told by Europeans that you must do something, until then and unless that is told to them, they are not doing it. We have no malice, rancor against anybody. Whoever feels offended, pardon us ahead of time because we're not scripted.
You're saying on a much larger scale, Renale, if you may not think this is the right thing to do, even on a much larger scale.
That's why they're dominated by the European ideas around energy.
Yeah.
That says that you must go away from this and then. Why are all other countries not doing it? Where have you ever seen a country leader, president, minister, telling you that I'm going to shut down an industrial sector?
Yeah.
And it's okay. Let's all, kumbaya. Let's all sing and make an incredible thing out of it. Where? They'll kill you.
Of course. You don't do that.
They will kill you. In China, you can't do that. In Europe, you can't do that.
You would be not even fired.
Europe, for instance, you go to France, 78%, 78% of their electricity is produced out of nuclear. Go tell them to shut down those nuclear plants. Let me see what you'll come out as.
You're saying so we're not quite seeing and understanding the scale of not having power.
That's it. And our children are not helping us. They're all glued up to social media nonsense, the TikTok hype and all the crap.
The real crime here is not having electricity.
Exactly. And they only complain and fill the bag of load shedding when there's no power and there's no connectivity. But nobody is teaching them to say, guys, let's be an exploring, let's be an adventurous nation. Let's be a scientific exploration. I mean, you go and evaluate, by the way, I'm not talking down our generation on any level. Go and evaluate a South African against their international counterparts on anything.
Yeah.
We come to that level, we go like,
We're not we
are bad.
Wait a minute.
I think we are bad.
We're not so bad.
David, we can't even...
No,
we have to feel bad for a while.
The Proteas are not bad.
Oh, please. Against who?
Our rugby team is brilliant.
Yeah, they scrum for who? Exactly. So, you don't have a rugby industry in South Africa. It's gone.
Well,
we're terrible. It was there.
Yeah, but we're not so bad.
No, we are bad, David. Let's stop being in denial. We are bad, and we have to reset mentally, and then start the process of transformation.
We have the capability to.
We have. Africans are brilliant.
Yeah.
I learned this thing out of self-exploration. I don't know it from a science. I know it out of
interest.
Quest.
Yeah.
How is it that I can do it out of my own self-efforts? I can go without even being put through a whole 10-year of absolute knowledge, pounding with regards to institutions. But I took my own time. I took my own effort. I learned this as a science and I understood it from a scientific point of view, whereby I can tell you the sectors of it, from nuclear to coal. I can tell you about renewables. I can tell you about the coming future of hydrogen. I can tell you about EVs, electronic vehicles, anything that is in the scope of energy. So if a person can put themselves through that,
yes,
and
means
you
we all
can be
can.
internationally competent and capable, we can all do it. But there's no will among us.
Looking at us now, from someone that has decided to have an interest and actually make an effort, looking at us now, do we have the capability to do what you've just described?
We have. It's an incredible capability we have.
Yeah.
The country is available. We should be building up brand new power stations today. We should be training up new artisans, new engineers. We should be training up new economists. We should be training up new accountants, financial people, people in HR and everything, because power stations are industries.
Are we not doing that?
None.
We have universities full of students with parents dying at the
Where are
gate,
they going to after that?
Trying to empower their kids.
They're all learning, they call them liberal arts. BA, nice things, like,
well,
feel good.
We need those as well.
No, fundamental. For what?
We need those for...
You can't specialize in literature when you don't even have a culture which you're countering against.
For culture.
What culture?
We need to embrace our heritage.
What culture?
Our heritage is important.
Consumerism. African culture has disappeared. We're all consumers now.
No, we're not.
I'm telling you, which part of your cultural traditional heritage can you recall? And you can tell me out of that traditional. I can tell you.
Yeah.
Over 10,000 years ago, the history of mankind's evolution. Over the last 2,000 years ago, I can tell you historical infograph from 2,000 years ago to now. And when civilization happened, and who brought about the civilization through even the element of Egyptology, right up to where we are, Monomotapa Kingdom. And their capabilities at the time, they were scientifically advanced. They could smelt gold. They could crush, stone and bring about diamonds out of it, right? And still shape it. What did they use?
Well,
they were not useful.
Not the technology we have now.
They were not useful. They were not wishful about it to say, so uncle and so is coming. No, they had to have technology.
Yeah.
They created the metals. They created crushing plants. They created smelting. And some of it is still even used in the Zama spaces where they could even do, the aspect of smelting in small nuggets of gold and everything and putting a bit of element of chemicals into it. So we had that. But over a period of the last 500 years when there was a disruption in our evolution, as a nation, as a people, African people, particularly in the southern tip, we were totally disrupted and completely colonized. And out of the colonization, there was a wiping off of everything that we'd done. Africa had cities. I'm not talking about Europe.
No, of course.
Before Europe had electricity, over 500 or 700 years ago, Africa had cities with lit up streets, electric lit up streets with copper cabling, by the way. But they will never tell you about that.
But we've lost that as well.
Thank you. So,
Yeah.
who were those people? Were they black people? Yes, they were.
Clearly they were.
Mansa Musa, who was he? Black?
Of course, he was.
And he could smell gold, right? Produced the current gold that is sitting in archives, in museums in London and Europe and all over, wherever the developed world is. Yet we can't trace ourselves at a heritage level. So where I'm saying we lost it is the current generation is the most laziest generation of Africans, and they have an element of no self-love. I do what I do out of self-love.
It's about you, really.
Of course, I feel incredibly amazed and empowered. That is why I said I'm not going to sit back and wait for a politician to tell me that empower yourself, take on the journey of transformation. I do it by my own. When people don't want to do what I do, read up, investigate in terms of researching, putting up time, nobody pays me. For mastering the science. By the way, I'm an expert who's unpaid. I don't want money out of this. For me, it's a passion. And the minute they start paying me, they're going to dictate what I can say and I cannot say.
Of course.
And when it started, remember, we come out of the era where there was broadcasting. And when we started this thing, people automatically just started saying, okay, this guy is too loud politically and he's a problem. Make him into an energy commentator.
Yes, and that's it.
And out of the energy commentator, they didn't know they were actually literally giving me a scientific area where I could excel in. So I just started saying, okay, I'm okay. I don't really enjoy politics and their fighting.
I want to talk about the social dynamics that we have as a nation right now, because that's really what you're saying. We're lazy, unmotivated, that's for sure.
For self-development.
They're
hard workers. They can carry stones. They can bloody build buildings that don't make sense. They can do everything. They can go and tar roads, but for self-development, for saying this is going to be about me.
Are we missing
this? It's going to be about us. We're missing it. Because we're not building our own complex estates, right? African people are not saying, listen, guys, we've seen a development, which is, for instance, a golf course development that houses incredible housing. There's people there. Can we, as black people, do it? We don't do it.
Yeah.
All right? We're not saying when we see, for instance, highways, start competing and say which consortium can build itself to build the brand new, most incredible highway. Who's doing it? They're all waiting for tenders.
It's an easy pick, though.
Why?
Well, we've had a hardship of many, many years. Why?
You and I, we're not even at that scale.
I'm trying to play
we survived out of villages
here and
we came out of villages.
But I'm saying we survived the challenges of a hardship, and now you're the ruling party, a ruling government, a ruling nation as Botaki.
Absolutely.
And there's an opportunity. Why struggle?
Do you know how? Let me take you back historically. How the Afrikaners created this engineering marvel and fit. All right? Van der Bijl Park.
Yeah.
There was a guy called Dr. Van der Bijl. At the time, he was not a doctor. He was just a enthusiastic, industrialist who said, since we have coal, we have power stations that can produce electricity, we have mining industry, how do we create industrialization? And he was tasked at the time to say, go and create an industrial complex. Van der Bijl Park, which is in the Val, was created to become an industrial hub to break down coal and create multiple products and applications out of it. Their biggest problem at the time, they didn't have water. Industrialization requires a lot of water. And out of there, they set what can we do? Now, look at the ingenuity. An ordinary Afrikaner, I mean, his parents came out of a wagon who had no education, nothing. They were just
fancy.
poor people,
Yeah.
really, remember. And I'll explain to you the history of how Afrikaners became industrial. They were not industrial before. They were,
Farmers,
they were
anything.
farmers who had failed in farming as well, who were eventually put into concentration camps by the British at the time. And then in 1908, it was decided that they'll be cut a slack as whites by the Europeans, at the time British, and then they created the current state called the State of South Africa out of the British Act of 1909 called the South African Act. The British Parliament passed it and then started funding a lot of development, and that's how they created the industrialization that the Afrikaners enjoyed. They were given the management class and supervisory class on the British property. Which
were
was
secondary
South
citizens.
South Africa, right? And then they were released out of the camps, then given industrialization because they were not, the statement says, we cannot let our white people suffer like this. I've never had a black leader speak that language. What do we need? So
I've had it during an election.
yeah, that's all talk shop. I mean,
Yes.
you can't tell us you can't let your people suffer like this. The next thing you're whisking out with your 6-car motorcade out of the township. We have no malice, rank against anybody. Whoever feels offended, pardon us ahead of time because we're not scripted. And you're not interested in saying, guys, let's now work this model. So what I'm saying is where we lack a lot is taking self-initiatives, making sure you and I come out of areas that at some point there was not even hope, but we made things out of ourselves. We made something tangible out of ourselves. Not to say that we've achieved anything. We're still in really the
No. We're at the bottom.
doldrums of it.
We're at
still
the bottom of
it.
this. Yeah.
But there is hope that we can change it. So it starts with that level of saying, what are we as a people and what are we aspiring towards? I'm telling you, energy is the solution to all of it. Produce enough electricity in South Africa, you'll create a problem of work for people.
How difficult is it
It's not.
to build a power station?
Not that difficult.
It's not as
Not difficult.
because we've done it many, many times before.
They give you barriers on laws.
Yeah.
Right now, South Africa has approved over 6,800 megawatts, and they are even increasing it of renewable energy, solar as well as wind, and then now they're looking at hydro, and then they're looking at gas. All right. If you were just to look at those programs in the last 10 years, from 2010 up to 2020, right? 2021, let's say, there's been round one of IPPs, independent power producers,
yes.
right up to today. Window 5, right? All those windows has been successfully deployed. We've got solar plants, we've got all of those plants. So if you could do such a good amount of work to produce new power belts, all right, and roll them out so fast, why can't the same be done in coal, in nuclear?
And coal is we already have the expertise.
That's it. You just do the same. I've already given over 20,000 megawatts to renewables. Give another consortium of people and whatever to do 20,000 megawatts of coal. Others must do 20,000 megawatts of gas. Others must do 20,000 megawatts of nuclear. Combine them, it's 100,000 megawatts. You know what that problem it creates?
Yeah.
You're a mega world-class city. You're a mega, country, which now has excess electricity, which means you must call in people to come and manufacture. You must call in industries to come and set up plants where you give them
Because you have all this
free,
power. Because you have all this
right?
power. Yeah.
It takes away what? Your problem of employment, technology, skills. Your universities now becomes the feeder for industry on skills development, not liberal sciences.
Yeah.
Arts, for instance, how to read the room and the mood. People don't want that. They want things to do, like how to create an app, technology, how to become the best programmer, how to become the best engineer, how to take the current, pollution and produce, zero carbon out of it in terms of capture that pollution or produce energy out of it. All of those things. You go to Silicon Valley, you go to all the other valleys in the world. They're looking at solutions of products, not ideas. And then the offset of it is the dividend that is pushed into industries or civil, social, political and others, where you create communities. And in those communities, then we have the liberal sciences, how to bring about children, how to inform them of life in terms of sciences, history, geography, and other things, how to educate them in getting to understand who they are as Africans. But there's nothing talking about Africans today. The last attempt was by Mbeki when he started the African Renaissance.
Yeah.
It completely died. They didn't continue with it. So we're not talking anything at this level about Africanism. We're at the bottom of the pit. That is why, as I said, myself, in comparison to my counterpart internationally, I don't compete.
You're not sharp enough.
I can be clever. I can be there and tell him great English and with an accent that is amazing. But that's all it will be. But at the scientific micro level of the minute atom level, we are not there. I went to China and I toured most of China. I've been throughout many regions in China. Incredible. I went into a room, right? They took me into this factory. And by the way, it was a solar refinery.
Okay.
They were producing the solar wafer as well as the refining of the, the solar products. I got into one room. It was an incredible room, huge. Young people in there, they were between 19 and 22. Desks, screen, and they had sort of notepads. So I got there and I said, oh, wow, it's amazing. And then they were all focused. And all writing and all checking the screen, writing and writing. So I said, what is this? Is it your training room? They were like shocked. I said, no, it's not a training room. This is our engineers. 19 and 21. What are these engineers doing? Are they on a training course? No, they are not on a training course. These are the people who are running this refinery.
Why?
Producing what? Industrial scale. Wafers, which they call them wafers. What you find in your solar panel is called a wafer. That little blue green thing.
Yes.
It's a wafer with its conducts and everything. They were producing that wafer-capable glass and technology out of the refinery. That entire refinery complex is run by those 21-year-olds. I was blown over.
So are you? Let's talk about something interesting because I can't help it.
Compare me with that 21. I will never do that job because
That's exactly-
I'm not trained in understanding that level of running a refinery.
That's where I'm going with this. That a 21-year-old who's able to do that kind of work, it speaks not only about the country state of mind as a collective.
He's not on TikTok.
Yes, and all of that. It speaks more than just the country state of mind. It also speaks of what we do in our homes as parents.
Exactly.
Because there's more to the story than just a president that motivates its nation to go, do the most.
Yeah.
It also speaks of what we do as individuals. You spoke about self-development. Self-development starts at home, essentially, and it happens at home.
Yes.
If you think about it, it happens if you're going to learn a new software, you're likely to do it better at home in your quiet space.
Yeah, I mean, all software developers are not even graduates.
That's
They're
my
all
point.
corrected on their own.
Well, there's one. What's Facebook?
Exactly.
It didn't finish school.
Yeah, Zuckerberg.
Exactly. So I guess the point I'm making is there's a lot more to the story than just what a government does. There's a lot more to it, and there's a parenting misstep that we're also making here. What is that, in your opinion?
It comes back to our aspirational values. Who are you? What do you want to be? And where do you position yourself at the level of the universe? We have accepted, and that's why we keep repeating the injury, and we keep internalizing the deformity. We're deformed because we keep accepting that apartheid wounded us and injured us, and not only that, actually made us defunct and redundant. So a person who
we keep saying
a victim state is
ever
likely not going to ever improve or even heal out of the victimhood mentality. We will forever be accepting that, no, I'm disabled. As a result, I'm not going to be able to do X, Y, Z. Whereas a disabled person realizes the disability and he says, you know what, Stafford, I'm going to do something. If I have to go and eat with my foot and I'm going to use my toe to eat, I'm going to make sure I feed myself.
Yeah.
All right. How is it that they can do it?
So we even worse than a disabled person, essentially.
Exactly.
Because our deformity is not obvious.
Like in music.
He's an amazing,
Andre Bocelli. He sings the most incredible notes you cannot even imagine. The guy is blind.
Yeah. Well, it gets worse.
And has beat all of us. I mean, so he learned instrument, he learned symphony music, he learned notes by not even seeing it, by visualizing it. He could read, scores, which is musical scores, right? He did it. And today, all of us, we all literally get to melt when he sings. Okay? In music, go to the ordinary musicians. These guys come from nothing. Most of them are not even graduates in music and anything. They cannot even read a score, which is a musical, writing. But they're incredible everything, whether it's hip hop, whether it's to do with, what would call it?
Yes, my piano.
Yeah, R&B, my piano, and everything, including Bacardi, which was like a genre coming out of Mamelodi, which they were just playing one tune all night called Bacardi. Today it became my piano.
Yeah.
Where did it come from? It was ingenuity. People sitting at a concentrated amount of time. They say 10,000 hours is all you need to do. Consecutively mastering an art. So I don't think we've even reached the pinnacle of realization. We from Transformers say, by the way, we want to spark that passion. That if somebody can do it, what about you? You can empower yourself.
So we don't seem to have that, though.
We have to push for it. I grew up in the township, right? I think one of the things that empowered me was government had some phony programs called social clubs, where they had youth clubs.
Yes. There was an era of youth clubs.
What did we do in the youth clubs?
Yeah.
Look at the various genres of socializing and activities. And we went into it and we thrashed everything. You were a dancer, you became a good dancer. I was not good at dancing, I never danced. So
there was singing, there were also
singing,
yes.
There was soccer, there was every other thing.
You name it.
I became good. I became brilliant in organizing.
Yeah, okay.
I was able to put teams together, whether it's dancers or whoever, and manage things.
Yeah.
And I was good. And I created something out of it. And I became, social events, a person who could put up social events and successfully put things
And that was your skill.
That's my skill. I was not good at dancing. My brother was amazing at dancing and everything. Arthur and them, we grew up under Arthur Mafukati at the time, and he was an incredible dancer. My brother was part of his team in dancing. And they went out and became great. None of those people did it because they were forced by government. It's because they found a niche and perfected it and became great. Today they are highly, really highly respected experts in their own field.
Are you saying we can take that state of seeing the world and apply it in the sciences?
You have to.
But we're not.
Dr. Dre. Yeah. We're all humming to his tunes. How did he make money? Earphones.
No, I know. Yeah.
He took just one concept. He says, but we can create an entire genre of boomers to earphones. Earphones were there already.
He didn't do anything new, really.
Yeah, nobody could see it. But he says, no, I can create a brand out of it. Kanye West, same thing. Sneakers. He didn't become a billionaire out of music. He became a billionaire out of sneakers. He says, I'm going to create my own line of sneakers. They all made a mockery of him. And today, he has got over 500 pairs of sneakers in his name that is actually retailing and distributing. So you don't need to be a so-called expert, like how we get referred to in anything. As long as you have a passion, go for it and become the best and the greatest. And use whatever support is there. Africans stopped being great when they internalize their historical deformity. Apartheid became a historical brain and a physical deformity. And at the mental level, we internalize that I am not capable of advancing to the next stage because it was only preserved for whites. So I shouldn't even think about it.
Do we downplay the level of work that this deformity requires to transform? Do we maybe downplay the amount of effort that was put in making sure that we are this disabled?
Totally. We downplay it.
Because I say there's a lot of work that was put into ensuring that our brains are a little funny.
Suboptimal level.
Yes.
We were made to function at a suboptimal level and never been able to tap into our most incredible power, which is our subconscious. We function at a suboptimal. It's not even subliminal, because subliminal is much more incredible. We are at a suboptimal. So if I'm a brilliant cup maker, I take to the mediocre level of cup making, and then I become comfortable, and then I resolve myself to that level. I'm a street sweeper, and that's all I'm gonna be. I stay in a township, and there's a Z for me, gents. Lizontola lapa, I hambani. And when you come back, the same guy is in the same situation. You and him grew up with the same opportunities, But what happened over time? They internalized their deformity. That's what got us out of those villages and those rundown places. And it was decrepit of everything. But I was inspired by the lights. And I said, look, I'm going to have to see these lights every day. How am I going to make it possible?
Move out from
I said, I'm going to have to get out of the village. I'm going to have to get out of the township and come and stay in this place. And to be great in this place, I must conquer it first. So that I can see these lights every day. That's what inspired me. And I went about doing everything I could to make sure that I am liberated from the township.
We speak this way about the reality of South Africans, and it's a gloomy picture because it doesn't speak of what's the next better step. It speaks of possibilities that could happen for us to become a better person or better people collectively, because it's about collective effort.
Absolutely.
It's not I can be empowered Kilowan and end up with a sneaker brand and become a success and build a house in Cape Town and I'm good.
Yeah.
But the collective is still
Black coffee.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yes. And many of them.
Phenomenal
yes,
globally. But
absolutely. There's Trevor Noahs of this world. We can go on.
Absolutely.
So and I worry when the reality of it is this virus that we seem to have permeates across all of levels of society, including our government, who are in some way are supposed to be inspiring the shift. It also permeates across our parents, who are supposed to help us, move towards this. Is there light in this dark, gloomy tunnel?
There is. What we should go back to is these aspirational values, because I think we came from great parents with their limitations. Remember, they fought against apartheid. Some survived within apartheid. Some had to conquer and survive in apartheid. They did their part. But when it came to our time, I think we became leeches. We only said because it was done for us, we are not responsible for the continuity of our total liberation. It's not complete. The liberation they did was a stage.
It was to give you the key to the
rest was for us to take over.
Yeah.
But did we do that? We became internalized in nonsense, in focusing on trends, in focusing on things that are not empowering. We never said, guys, we are appreciative of where you've been. Let's continue. History, science, culture, any revolution continues. It didn't stop at the point of the fighting. But we became internally disabled at the fighting model, where we said we were defeating apartheid. Yes, we defeated the concept apartheid, but we took on the illness of apartheid, which is the internalization of our deformity due to apartheid, and we carried it forward. So instead of using that to say never again, never ever in our history should we be ever exposed to a situation where we will be oppressed, we allowed for the oppression. And then they had a very sneaky program. Our politicians are mostly clueless people, really, in essence. I'm not being hard on them.
They're not experts in any space.
No, they're clueless. And they're lovely people. You can socialize with them. You can laugh as hard with them. You can have an incredible personalities. They are lovely people. But at the fundamentals, they are clueless. They don't really understand. Now there's a phenomena, for instance, in let's take what we're doing, podcasting. Which government program supports podcasting industry in South Africa? Minister of Arts, whatever, science and technology, whatever it is, should be pouring in a lot of money to stimulate the sector that is most promising. Are they doing it?
No.
So they're clueless.
Yeah.
So at the fundamentals, our people are clueless, our leaders are clueless, and they are internalizing. All that they say is to go back to the historical blame. We were oppressed by apartheid and apartheid. Yes. But
we know.
Beyond that now. Give us what we need to do to fight and destroy all the remnants of that disabled program. 100 years was spinned into our heads of how useless we were.
Yes.
Incapable.
That's the damage I'm talking about.
Unappreciable. We didn't even think of us as beautiful people.
Yeah.
But nobody came back and says, you know what, David, you're so amazing. You've got this incredible. You are a personality. Can you groom yourself beyond yourself? Nobody ever even told us that we are good looking. So whenever we perceive ourselves, we always perceive ourselves, I could be looking good, but you know what? We come from apartheid. We're always apologetic.
Is that where we get our so-called humility?
Thank you. And it's horrible. At an industrial level, you can't be humble. when our people talk about success, it's always it's like, but go to Europe, they make you feel it. I'm great because I just invented, the art of social networking. Like, really?
So we're not like that.
You have to,
and it comes deep.
You see, and that is not our leaders were incredibly arrogant people. Shaka, Sekukune, all the other African leaders were incredibly arrogant.
Including Mandela.
Yes. They were arrogant because they understood the science. They tapped into another force and power. But as South Africans, the children, the offsprings, we've become so, culturalized around humility. It's just a small effort, but it will improve, man. And you become dumbed, and we don't see value in greatness. And where we're supposed to be great about it, we don't make greatness out of it, check the things, man, the brands, the lifestyle. All of these things are created by somebody, not us.
Every single one.
Yeah. You have an Afrikaner called, for instance, and I'm going to be controversial, for instance, Rupert. Talks nonsense about black people.
Yes.
And
we still buy his
products. From Vaseline to
you name it.
Dove to milk. And we're still supporting him. We should have said, dude, you know what? We are the consumers. And because you have insulted us like they will do, you go and talk bad about Israel. They'll boycott you. Go talk bad about the Americans. They'll make you feel the pinch. Go talk bad about Europeans. Go talk bad about Chinese. Go talk bad about any other nationality. They will penalize you. We're the only ones that say, it's okay. You know what? It's an opinion. What opinion?
It's an opinion.
We should be so proud and to a level of arrogance.
Yeah.
To our grandstanding to say, no, you can't do that about me. You cannot say that. Why? Because you're working in order to reaffirm something I'm fighting against. I'm fighting against this disease of the legacies of what disabled us as a people. So the only comment I can take from you is to help me escape from this madness. Why are we not staying in suburbs?
Well, we can't afford it.
Why?
Well, because the legacy of our history has made us...
So we have internalized that we should earn 3,000 rent, right?
3,005.
Yeah, thank you. 3,005 as a basic salary.
Yes.
Who created the yardstick of that 3,500?
It seems it's us now. We are creating it as we are perpetuating.
We started a revolution, as Transformers says, that says black people should earn, even a cleaner, should earn nothing less than 50,000 rents a month. Everybody looks at us and says, are you crazy or what? And I said, no, we are to an extent, but there are fundamentals to it. If we are serious as a state, we must create an income that says that for us to be able to pay for a house, a car, to pay for your medical, to pay for your tuition, to pay for your children, to pay for your lifestyle, even if you're single, you should be having an income that is consumerate to your lifestyle. Who's responsible for that income? The state.
Yeah. They have to ensure they create an environment that does that.
It's his responsibility. So the president should be having sleepless nights, worrying, how am I going to create a society of men, women, children, youth, people with disabilities, everyone. Even the current scenario where we have everything in our power to support us to live the best of life. Every economy has done it. The Japanese, 60 years ago, they were bombed in Hiroshima. Today, they enjoy the highest level of living standard in the world, education and everything.
The most expensive square meter
you cannot pay
in the
Japanese
world is in Japan.
Less than, say, 100,000. An ordinary street sweeper. No, nothing skills.
Yeah.
Less than 100,000. Because they can't live on it. So as Africans, we have internalized and this becomes your life. If you don't denounce it and say, dude, I'm not going to vote for you unless you give me a minimum basic salary of 50,000 a month, I'm not going to talk to you as a leader. I'm not going to take you serious.
Do we have the right president?
Look, character and caliber is something that is determined by the people. The right situation right now, President Cyril Ramaphosa, he's not going to do better than what he's done.
There's nothing else here.
There's nothing else. He's already sitting in a quagmire situation. Every day he just has to lie himself to keeping us hopeful. There's not much he can do. He's limited.
But why do you say he's limited if he has the ultimate power to change the direction?
He's agreed to the program. the program that says that this is the only way we could get to in terms of economic development. Why would you go knowing that your people's sustenance depends on this so-called dirty coal, dirty industrial capability, and you go and you crush it? Why would you do that?
You agree with people who are saying it's not good for you.
Somebody somewhere makes a demand on you, probably even some secret corridors, promises you something in return for yourself to survive, and you say, as long as I can get out of it scot-free, I will comply. So I don't have hope right now in the current leadership, whether it's Cyril Ramaphosa, whether it's to do with the political setup. Alternative needs to emerge where we have conscious leaders, activists, even out of the current scenarios of political party mishmash. Alternatives have to emerge out of it, of people who will say, guys, we're going to take it upon ourselves, one, to undo this mess, two, to place our people at the center of it. Not this Batupili in concept. When I say Batupili, it must be, hey, gents, we can't pay you. The 900 is not enough as a stipend grant, but let's see if we can make 20,000, a basic salary. Let's see if we can push it to the highest scale of 50,000, so that you can have income to spend. In return, that money is recycled back into the economy. It goes back to the state. It creates the industries. It supports the value chains that we need from all sectors. And then it does the reverse cycle again. So the thinking is not there. That's just that they had to corner me into energy, because I know more than energy.
I was about to say, when we invited you here, it was an energy conversation.
No, they were clever,
but
they knew at an economic level, at fundamentals, we know what should be done.
Let's go back to energy. Let's go back to our situation. You said we should build power stations.
Absolutely.
Ideally, one a year, if anything.
Mega ones.
Yeah, mega ones.
Minimum 2,000 scale.
It's not impossible. You said we've built power stations. We've built two incredible power stations in the past 10 years or so.
10 years, yeah.
Kusile, Medupi.
10, yeah.
Yes.
Till now.
Those two are mega power stations. What is the reality with those, and based on your knowledge, what has been our challenge?
Our challenge there was one. There was a mix-up on technical capability. Remember, they gave spec. It was actually done so hush quickly that they actually flipped capabilities. They gave one company something that they were not good at, gave the other company what they were not good at, and the contracts were already signed and sealed.
So we made a mistake right at administrative level.
Boilers.
Yeah.
Okay. One was given a wrong spec and awarded a wrong spec because it was so quick.
Yeah.
And there was no need for tendering at the time. It was done as a, sort of a executive order. And based on that, there was mistakes. And that is why these two companies are struggling. Mitsubishi, Hitachi.
Yeah.
Because they are actually doing work in their non-competent area.
Jeez.
That's why there's problems. They have not built that. It was their first scope.
They were learning as they were going.
So they had to learn now. They are still learning. They are doing okay in their learning, but they're making big mistakes, which are now resulting in cost overruns and other things. In any other country, these companies would have been penalized to a point where their directors would be in prison, except in South Africa and Africa.
What has been the result of this inability to deliver on such a basic product?
No, they don't know. There was no capability. That's the inability there. Had you given them their core, they specialized in turbines. You gave them their turbine, for instance, scope. They would have been brilliant. They would have built this thing. Had you gone back to Eskom and says, but instead of awarding independent contractors, can we entrust Eskom with the role of ensuring that they will internally go back to their historical institutional capability and build these power builds by themselves? And then you can subcontract only to other OEMs or suppliers. Only at subcontracting, not main contractors.
So we could have built this.
We could have built it.
Yeah.
Because they were going to be held responsible. But the program is, Eskom became a project manager, and then the main contractors, who were the lead contractors, became the suppliers, the OEMs, who didn't have capability. And that is the truth of it. That is why there was scope creep. There was continuous breakdowns. There was continuous delays. There was a whole lot of mishmash.
Jeez.
And there was an opportunistic element. With these delays, there's money. Every time
always
you're
is.
not delivering on time, I make money. There's penalties. There's other things. There's other issues of me being able to keep on billing and overbilling and doing scope creep in terms of just revenue creation from nothing. So
Are we able to switch on a heater at Kusile right now? Can I go there and
no,
plug
it's
a heat?
working.
It's working.
It's working. Kusile and Midupi are working. But they keep on tripping, meaning they keep on going into blackouts.
Yes.
They keep on
And it's a total
running
blackout.
down.
Yeah.
Units are running down, which means they switch off, they go into blackouts, they go into trip state.
So we can't rely on any of that.
Some of the units bend down, and it's been a whole hogwash of everything, like everything happened in the process because it's a learning phase. But had they just gone to remember that 6-pack model I spoke about, how Eskom became a master in the world of building 6-pack model. They took the 6-pack, gave it to an independent contractor and took it out of Eskom as a competence. So Eskom should by now be employing literally double the capability of what they were doing at the time to just build this power station in time and everything. The same with nuclear. Nuclear capability was there within NEXA and the Nuclear Corporation. But the minute you started outsourcing most of it, you created the market forces issues. And then with that, you're going to have the respondent result of it. So if you can continue consistently on what you're doing, that is why in China, in Europe, in Asia, in Latin America, in America itself, Canada, and US, they all use the state's capability. The defense industry is run by who? It's run by the Defense Department.
Yeah. We've been there, isn't it? With Denel?
All of it.
Technically.
But why are they all in a state of shamble? We never continued their expertise. So it's possible. And with it, there are multiple opportunities. There are plethora of opportunities. South Africa could live the best of life if we were just to do the basics quickly and fast. Decide and do it. But now we're beholden to politics. We're beholden to slates and factions now. They call it factions. We're beholden to personalities. We're beholden to individuals who don't even want to do anything transformative. You have Andre de Reuters, who, instead of saying, guys, I know I'm not going to do my best, but my list I can do
is
to get your power stations that are working.
Yeah, to get them working.
He says no, he's not interested. He inherited a dead horse and he's going to kill it and he's going to start a new program of pushing for alternatives. Do you know when
do you think alternatives are a best solution in this
No,
regard?
they're not. They're never going to be for now. In the next coming 10-year future, alternatives are like it's like your backup battery. If the main one fails, I have something that could back it up. But it only works
UPS.
It only works on backup capacity. Yeah. A UPS can sustain a 30-minute run at best, but cannot do a 24-hour job. So that's where people should understand. That's why we keep talking about base load, which is your base demand, and that base load has to have its peak capacity, between highest demand of electricity to the point the demand plateaus, reaches its level curve, and then falls after 9 o'clock at night or whatever. And then between 6 in the evening or 5 in the afternoon when people are active, and then in the morning between 5 and 8 in the morning. Yeah, that's called peaks. And then after that it plateaus, and then it reaches a certain level where it's stable, right, in terms of demand. When you reach peak, that is when you need certain power. So technologies such as, for instance, wind and solar should be used if we have 100,000 megawatts of electricity of coal and nuclear. Get in a complementary. You can even bring 100,000 megawatts of solar and wind, but they are not going to give you the 100,000 megawatts
that you need
capability nameplate, which is kilowatt hour production as well as megawatt hour production. They are going to give you less. Baseload power station of coal produces almost 100%, to produce between 90 and 95% of power.
What are we doing now?
On wind and solar, it only produces up to 30%. It's between 15 and 30% capacity.
So we shouldn't even talking about that at all.
Complement and offset baseload with the current alternative emerging. Until these technologies are at their stable level, we cannot talk fundamentals of electricity with them. That's why every country uses them. China uses it, but it's not the main source. It's your salad. It's your dessert.
Yes.
It's not necessarily a staple.
It's not the main course.
Now and then when you need, right? Base load is your main course.
Your main course is coal. Your main course is coal.
It's your pap.
Yeah.
It's your rice. It's your basic bread. It's your staple. You're not gonna not go without it, right? And then your protein, meat, and the substitute of meat. Here is called occasionally. It's called alternatives. As and when I feel I want to bite a chocolate, it's lovely.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna eat chocolate for a main meal. That's the closest I could define this.
No. And you put it very simply, and surely we can understand. Are we at a point where we write off the efforts of the last 10 years and
on
start
renewables?
again?
No.
Yeah.
Look,
No, not renewables.
Yeah.
On the base that you speak of.
The base load.
Which is Medupi and Kusile. We're at a point of writing them off,
What are you gonna do?
or we should be trying to fix them
No,
still.
Medupi and Kusile is a brand new power plant. You still have 40, 50 years out of them.
But we're not getting the power we need.
No, you can write the cost overruns. You can write the 450 billion. It's nothing, because if I had to build the same plant in the next 5 years, it will cost me more. It will cost me $1 trillion plus because of.
So you might as well try to fix this.
Finish it.
Yeah.
And if you have to penalize those that didn't do right. Okay, that's one. In project management, your baseline. This is where I am going forward. I'm not going to have the repeat mistakes. You do this. So right now, fix what you have and get it running optimally, and ensure you have a program in it. Have your staggered plan out of it. To build South Africa to where we want to see it, we have no option but to build power plants.
Yeah.
We have to build coal. We have to build nuclear. We have to bring in gas as an alternative. If we find its source locally, or we go and invade, for instance, Mozambique, we can invade them, by the way, and take over their gas.
Botswana. What do we have in Botswana and Lesotho?
Botswana has
Is there
coal and
anything we
diamonds.
need? Yeah, there
We
you
can
go.
take over.
I hope they're not watching this.
So if we were to invade, Mozambique,
Yeah.
and integrate it into South Africa, it will be a better country, by the way, and we'll have gas,
Not sure about
abundant gas.
I'm not sure about
Of course,
that.
I mean we do better than Mozambique.
Yes. Might just make them.
We'll be an extended province. We can come out with a couple of 5 provinces out of Mozambique, and we'll still be fine.
Yeah.
Out of our 9 provinces.
So
We'll add 14.
they have something we may use.
We need
a lot of coal.
Yes.
Yes.
Gas is
Gas-
currently available in Mozambique. We're using Moz gas in South Africa, and we are using the Kahora Bassa hydro plant, which is what is currently powering about 2,000 megawatts, if I'm incorrect, that is producing South Africa's electricity. It supplements. So we need that. And if we were to work out mechanisms, they did it right at the time, and that's where you must take out a hat for the likes of Thabo Mbeki as the former president. He did it right in terms of that negotiated agreements over a long-term period. They created the corridor, which we enjoy now, of the energy corridor between Mozambique and South Africa, as well as the gas pipeline for Sasol to benefit, as well as the Mozambican to get their, the gas tariff, which was negotiated at really ridiculous low prices at the time. We still have access to that, but we lost Sasol. Sasol is no longer a South African state-owned entity, and we're not getting the dividend benefit out of it. So there are things you do right, you can get it back. We've got a shoreline, the longest shoreline, over 1,000+ kilometers, right? If my memory serves me well, from Cape to Natal, right?
To Port Edwards.
Port Edwards, right? Yeah, in Natal, right? No, actually to Mozambican border.
Yeah, well, I
It's our
guess.
shoreline, right?
Well, we're not claiming Mozambique yet.
Yeah, not as yet. We will get there. So from Cape, we integrate Namibia. We could even have an incredible,
yes. You can go all the way around.
Yeah.
Yes.
So from Cape, right down to Natal, what do you call it, Richards Bay, you have nothing else but shoreline of vegetation.
True.
Until you get to Devon. From there, you move up. There's just vegetation until you get to Port St. John's. And there's not even anything. It used to be an old port from the Dutch, right?
Yeah.
They abandoned it. You get to Port Elizabeth, there's a port. Richards Bay, Devon, Port Elizabeth. From Port Elizabeth, you get into East London for the automotive port, right? From East London, you get to Port Elizabeth. From Port Elizabeth, you get to Saldanha. Not Saldanha, Mossel Bay. From Mossel Bay, you get to Cape Town. From Cape Town, you get to Saldanha.
So you're saying we have all
We
of
haven't
that.
done anything
I know.
on it. It's not mega anything. In the world, when they look at us, they go like, are these people really okay?
But there's a political debate there with the locals saying that you can't change our way of life. So you're rolling your eyes.
Which way of life?
Our simple, non-contaminated way of life.
You've got a country like the size of South Africa, and you're going to tell me about a simple 1 kilometer shoreline that you can make an industrial hub out of it?
Interesting. I've spent a good week in that part of the world because I was doing something for Kokta. I'm quite familiar.
On Titi, what do you call it, that area?
Yes, I'm quite familiar with that stretch of shoreline because I had to literally try to understand it. And you have people are saying, we're good.
Oh, NGOs. It's not the communities. If I told those communities I'm going to bring industries there and instantly create,
and you'll get work.
Instantly create you into millionaires. Nobody will argue with me.
So you're saying it's the wrong people that are fighting for this?
The NGOs. Yeah. They are mostly funded by multinationals to stop industrialization. There's nothing wrong.
Industrialization anywhere or in South Africa?
In South Africa. We need it. The world works on industrial scale. Yeah. You're not going to wish development with ideas that are not currently global. You can't have industrialization without ports. You can't have industrialization without refineries. You can't have industrialization without manufacturing hubs. You can't have industrialization without the ability to create roads, infrastructure, to create airports, to create border ports, and to create airports into their own existing ports, cargo port from plane to inland city. So the thinking, the corridor mindset of what we talk about, where if we were to dominate Africa, like as I say, we can go and take over Mozambique. We don't have to invade them. We must just become their main dominant supplier of everything at a high value level. We own it.
What is at the heart of multinationals making it hard for this tiny little country at the bottom of Africa to grow into the next level?
That's to prevent our explosive ability to become highly developed as a people.
Yeah.
That's done deliberately. Our growth is managed at a meticulous level. That's why whenever you try certain things, the rand will plummet or will appreciate. The rand will be manipulated. And we have even research studies. I mean, the competitions commissions and the others have done research studies on how the rand was manipulated for 10 years, since 2017. And even before then, I even know of incidents where there was deliberate collapsing of the rand as an economy. So there are interests, and those interests are not necessarily South African. Our problem with the politicians locally are not brave enough to say, guys, we are going to break the global multinationalists' pressure on South Africa. And to break it is we have to reformat these relationships. And it's either we demand our position and place as Africans in Africa from a South African point of view, and we say to all of these agreements with these guys that are pushing against us to say, no, we are going to renegotiate these things. The British Empire, and I'm saying this out of facts, right, owns South Africa's economy. I'm not making that up. You can ask any.
Tell me how you get to that.
There's something called your foreign direct investment. Your FDI, foreign direct investment, is composited of foreign interests that are highly invested, which means your roads, schools, clinics, hospitals, everything are funded by what? The owners of your FDI, foreign direct investors. The largest, and people must make their own history, research. The largest investor of FDI in South Africa is British Empire, is the British government, on the basis that they get the offset of our commodity, minerals hub, as well as our labor. So
I'll come in this side and you give me this one.
So we failed at negotiating the offsetting of that FDI arrangement. And the empires hold. The British Empire is still in control of South Africa. They run everything from the mines to the rail to the airports. They run everything physically, like as in owners. And this is not political rhetoric. I'm not trying to be famous about anything. I'm telling you fundamental economic facts. They own the value of our economy. If you don't go back to London, to the Queen, and say, Mama, please, just fill us pity now. Cut us a slack and give us something that we can grow our people's lives.
Maybe Robert Mugabe had something going there.
Mugabe did it with the Lancaster Agreement.
Yes.
When he took them into a war, he says, no, you're not going to work. This is good. This is an absolute hogwash. I'm not going to agree. They then settled with him on Lancaster. Our politicians don't know that they could go back to London and say, Mama, when Queen, let's talk proper now. Listen, we're going to rearrange this formula. These minerals are ours. We're going to charge a dividend value on it. When you extract them, we want a commodities price. If you're saying platinum on the boss
is so much,
it's paid to us in that much.
You're not getting a discount.
Yeah, you can find your way. You can take it and refine it to do something that you can come back and sell it to us at a certain level. But that price, like how the Arabs got it, they have it. They get every gallon.
Are we suffering a typical African syndrome of owning something but not recognizing its value and then giving it away to others and then buying it back at 3-4 times the price?
That's why our politicians keep on saying we want investors. I already have the ore. I own the minerals. I have already the coal. So
you say we don't even need them, really?
No, tell investors, dudes, you're going to come into South Africa, you can get the diamonds, you can get the platinum, you can get the gold, but you're paying it at market price.
Yeah.
We don't have that setup right now. That's why the Afrikaners created a model with the British. The reason they were kicked out and apartheid ended was because they became too clever for the British. It's fact. Most Africans don't know about it.
Yeah.
They were removed out of power because they had become so advanced and so developed. They only retained the echelon crust of them, who were now willing to comply forward. That is why I'm saying to you, go back to FDI, foreign direct investment in South Africa. It points you back to London. And in London, there are key people there who are controlling our state. And controlling it how? As super investors. That's why everything we have to do, we have to be very sympathetic towards investors feel. Why?
And we have a president that speaks only that language. Every day he opens a new factory every day.
Guys, you can blame Cyril Ramaphosa, but he understands global power. He understands who makes the decisions. That's one thing he's mastered. That is why he never goes against the script of the global masters in terms of decision making. You know, oh, Mama, what do you want? The Queen says, no, this program won't work. Okay, fine. I'll go back home. And he comes back and he gives us good English. And he neutralizes us. So Cyril Ramaphosa understands, unlike any other person. You know, and that is why we are fighting against something that we're not going to win. If we wanted the president to perform, we should have given him a manuscript to say, our head of state, president, whether it was Zuma, Mbeki, whether it was to do with, Cyril Ramaphosa or Motlanthe. This is our list of demands. You don't meet it, we're out. You're out. Whatever you have to do, go negotiate with them.
Are we fighting as South Africans for small things?
Not even small, nothing.
I say this because today, tomorrow, this week, sometime, there'll be a service delivery protest. In the bigger picture, it seems like it's too small a fight.
Do you know how many service delivery protests occur in South Africa?
Well, I have a sense of it, yes.
Over 5,000. Divided by 365 days.
That's why I said
you'll see how many protests in the country. So that's a culture. They give you such rights. You can enjoy them. Speak as much as you want. Say whatever you want. You know, I'm on your podcast. It's a free podcast. I could say anything. You know, you're not censored.
No.
You can't do that in the establishment.
No.
But if we were serious about it as a people, we have to go back to the drawing table and speak to these owners of our industries, the people who are determining our commodities, the people who are saying that we can't do this, we can do this. And say to them, listen, guys, we have our own wish list.
Yeah.
And it's about time you give us the slack as blacks. For whites, they do it. Whites must live well. It's a standard. They don't question it. They must have a car, if not 2, if not 5. And they can prank. And I know it. They cry for their demands. You're not going to underpay them. It's wrong. They're white. But you're black and you accept such conditions.
It seems it's our fault.
Thank you. We've accepted. So we must like that. You know, in my spade, a child who doesn't cry normally will suffocate behind the back strap. That's the closest I can get to. So we haven't yet activated our subliminal capacity to be forceful in our understanding of who we are. We got to demand. We've got a reserve bank that has a responsibility in South Africa to create wealth and an income, not to manage inflation only.
Which is essentially what they do.
No, they're not even managing it. Inflation is on a runway, over 900% since 1963. There's a infograph of how it's been going out of order since then. So if you do an accumulative assessment, you'll find
it's worse than the 6%.
So we have not done anything. So those are not instruments we want. Less interesting for us. It's the ability to create money that must circulate and create what we want. That's how the World Bank, with no investment. Have you ever heard that the World Bank was given money to start anything?
No.
Why? It's created out of ether.
Out of nothing.
Thank you. And they created digital and decimals.
They created the digital money.
Why? Because Europe under Germany was destroyed to the smithereens. There was nothing available. They created money, and that money was made to circulate in order to reindustrialize Europe.
So they just literally put an extra zero.
They did it. They just did it. And it's there in economics. You'll see what they did, right? And based on that, they were able to pay the Germans the highest income, to live the best of lifestyle, to enjoy the best of world class. Today, you can't compete with them. Similarly to other countries, they did that to Japan. They did that to America. You go to America, they created wealth. They created land, and then they created money as a monetary system. The Federal Reserve System was created there so that they can do what? Create the mechanism for creation of money. Africans are the only people in the world. I'm not even talking about African Americans. They didn't do anything. Africans in the world are the only nation that have accepted the rules and have taken the rules to literally colonize themselves with those rules. So when I say to you...
And everybody else breaks the rules.
When I say to you, do not, in African terms, I said, I kill you if you do. We've taken the rules and made them now a albatross.
Yes, yeah.
So instead of saying, look, the rule says the Reserve Bank has the ability for upward mobilization of wealth, creation of income, to create money so that we can lift up the social conditions of our people. What do we say as the Reserve Bank governors? What do we say as the Reserve Bank, directors as well as boards? No, you can't create money from nothing.
No, that's a statement that we are taught even at school.
If I say as a Reserve Bank, I'm going to create a float, banks from now onwards, every black child who's over 21 must be given a mortgage opportunity to own a house, which means you've created industries that are going to build houses, produce components, make sure there's a car.
Furniture.
For every house, there must be furniture, there must be car, there must be Woolworths on the corner.
You've completely transformed an economy.
Thank you. Yeah. Is that science? It's not
rocket science.
It's doable. Everybody has done it.
Yeah.
But Africans love this consistent struggle. And I'm saying it so that everybody must understand it, so that they cannot say we never said it. They love to struggle. We have internalized. I'm not going to make any difference. So we have to go back to self-interrogation. There's nobody holding a gun on us. Of course, they'll hate us. They'll maybe impose a sanction.
They'll vilify you. Like the Chinese vilified.
Cyril is the best negotiator. Why can't he go back and negotiate? He negotiated the CODESA. Why can't he go back and negotiate? Saying, guys, just give our people at least the basic minimum living standard. Let them live.
Yeah.
I would do that in my position. I'll go and have robust day and night discussions with London every day
until they get tired of you.
Give it to our people.
Yeah.
At least they must have a decent standard. 3-bedroom house.
We have the land for it.
120 minimum square meters house, right? 3-bedroom, right? They must have streets that are tarred, paved gardens. They must have parks. They must have cars, houses, everything that are needed. Above that, it must be their own self-effort to maintain and sustain it further. They want to be billionaires. They must create things.
Yeah.
I'll go there and negotiate. I said, you can't be imposing all the structural adjustment programs. You can't be imposing all of these policies that says we cannot develop and use our resources to our advantage. That's what I would do.
Do we have the right people to help with this negotiation currently? And I mean future people that are currently in the politics of our time.
Right now, I don't think mostly don't even know that there's such a capability that you can go and negotiate with anyone who owns
beyond the point you are.
Two states, Americans
and the British. Yeah.
Go and see it. Just check the DFI, foreign FDI, foreign direct investment. The two largest investors are Americans and British. And in between, there's pockets of
course,
other countries.
Chinese and many others. Yeah.
But you need to go and get to the dominant ones who are blocking everything, which is the British and partly the Americans who are destabilizing the economy. all right, and the British,
Yeah.
and say to them, we need a breather period. You've done it for Afrikaners. You've given them apartheid at the time that they could develop themselves. You've given us democracy with no support. Even Israel has been supported against Palestinians.
Of course. Well, even Ukraine.
Ukraine has been given money from nowhere.
Yeah.
Everybody is passing money budgets to throw into Ukraine to sustain its revolutionary, fight, mechanism, and everybody else is imposing sanctions on Russia. So if that can be done overnight, billions, trillions can be passed in order to uplift. For South Africa, what can be done?
Is Russia a perfect template of a self-sustainable country?
No, Russia, you can't even count them. They are far ahead. Russia could not have gone into a war unless they knew
they could handle it. Yeah.
They planned it well. They had the foresight and they created the industrial hub. Russia's strength right now is industrial capability. And they understand the global, they call it the geopolitics, the global strengths. And in that global strength, they are now competing to be among the global dominators and the forefront, global superpowers. Between now, we're talking about Russia and the US, including
and the Chinese,
China.
yes.
Chinese, right?
Yeah.
Those are the contenders for that space. Russia has been able to position itself as a ally of, for instance, the Chinese, because they're sharing a border, and Russia, and they've combined their industrial capability. And that is why it's impossible almost for any other superpower to take them on. Sheer numbers, sheer industrial capability, and their ability to can fend off against anything. Who did they fight against? They went and blasted the Ukraine because NATO was threatening them on coming in behind their borders. If they could do that for that one objective, what can they do to defend themselves?
And that objective may seem trivial to other people because this guy wants to build a base next door to you and you're saying it's Israel.
Thank you.
That's it.
Yet in Africa, we're opening up bases for all sorts of military expedition. America itself has an incredible amount of bases. Why? Because at any point, if their interests are threatened, they're going to retaliate and will fight back against us. So there is an element of geopolitics which we have overlooked. Our politicians themselves, because they have just been inducted in the immediate work they do, have never been given the window of what is potentially possible.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be suffering. No child should be living in poverty in South Africa. No
and it's not just
adult.
It shouldn't be just rhetoric. It should be a reality of our lives.
Yeah. No adult should be without a job or even an income. In South Africa, we're 58 million people. In that 58 million people, there's only 15 million households. So each and every home, if they only had a basic income of 50,000, basic, this entire economy will talk multiple GDP.
True.
They do it in Qatar. They do it in Saudi. Adults don't even have to have any education. The minute they are reaching an adult age, they give them a house, they give them a subsidy grant for a car, they tell them get married, and then you get your income, and then they tell them start a business. We will partner you with an investor who will give you opportunities. So if other countries could do this model and have an income and have the highest in Qatar, every Qatari, there's about 800,000 of them. Right? Above the whole population, about 4 million. Every Qatari is a multi-millionaire in dollar terms and enjoys the highest level of income. They have the second most highest level of income in the world. And they haven't done anything spectacular. They're just ordinary citizens.
Is it
living well?
Do we go back to a country has to create money for its people to live well? It's that simple.
Middle East is a basic example of Africans there, because they are Africans, okay, in the Middle East, who have done it better for themselves, negotiated better conditions, negotiated better terms. The investors come and go. They are still there. They are still created by the investor model. The British are still heavily invested in the Middle East. America is still invested heavily in the Middle East. But the conditions were determined ahead of time. To say for your benefits to exploit our resources and industry, our resources, you're going to give us an offset of it. We want a good life. We want to be paid for that good life. And they're enjoying it. But Africans, so go back to the sickness I said about it. That I think apartheid wounded us to a point where we don't even have self-confidence in getting out of the quagmire of being stuck as a victim of apartheid. And we always think in that mindset. So it's time that we break that and be, blatantly arrogant that we demand. Be like whites. There's no water for 1 hour.
Be like Karen.
Yeah, Karen, there's no water for 1 hour.
Ooh.
They throw a tantrum, you'll feel it.
I'm on a WhatsApp group, so trust me, I know all about it.
They throw a tantrum and things get done, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So-
I'm on 2 WhatsApp groups that have...
So if that's possible, David,
Yeah.
what can we do? But we have internalized the mediocre state
Yeah.
in our minds. It's okay.
That's why I say it's such a gloomy reality, because our conversation starts with the ability to switch on the lights. But you realize in this conversation that it translates, this inability to switch on the lights literally translates into all our other inabilities.
And you guys are a problem for whites now, because they can't enjoy full-time electricity 24 hours because half of you are all using that electricity that should be coming to them. And now they need to share it. And now
And share the misery as well.
and share the misery. And at the same time, be restricted in their lifestyle.
Yeah.
So we just have to make it easy and say, guys, let's just make it all for us.
Yeah, let us all suffer.
Let's
then.
all suffer
Yeah.
and enjoy it. And that is the only thing that normalizes us, is the load shedding. For those that don't have money, they cannot pay their freedom out. They have to suffer with it. Even if you have money, by the time load shedding hits, you get out of your house. I'm telling you, you're going to be stuck on every robot.
No, that's true. Yeah, you can't avoid
Get
it.
into any institution and establishment, you're not going to enjoy anything because
Yeah.
they are currently hampered by the scourge of electricity. So it comes back to that point when I said electricity is the heart of everything. As much as we don't see it, I don't care what source it is. It can be coal, nuclear, gas, hydro, wind,
doesn't matter.
solar, bio, whatever, diesel, biogas, bio, everything. It doesn't matter. Create the electricity in abundance, then feed it into industry, create the necessary infrastructure, have people now use that electricity to empower their lives. And if it doesn't go back to that, we will forever be in what America. Go to Malawi here, just across the border. Why they live a miserable life? And our borders are porous. It's because they don't have electricity that is
No.
sufficient for their development.
Well, I was in Mozambique and we had we had load shedding. I was in Pemba. We had load shedding the whole
Blackouts
day.
there.
Yes, all the
It's
time.
not load shedding.
It's blackouts. Yeah.
It's a blackout. They're not even balancing anything. They just close off that area for electricity. Here, it's a grid collapse. So they have to literally spread out the electricity and reduce the demand.
Can you store electricity?
You can. A lot of it can be stored through we have a hydro system, which they are already using. And when it's needed, they release it.
That's it. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's called
So
battery storage.
you
It's
can't
called a
keep it.
battery
You can't
storage.
keep it burning. Essentially,
Yeah.
you can save it somewhere.
You need a battery to store it. That's where renewables in terms of battery backup becomes even better. If we were to move into a total so-called renewables energy space, we would have to have an incredible amount of battery storage.
Yeah.
So that
That's
whatever
why I
generation-
asked. Yes,
whatever is generated,
you save it. Yeah.
but right now you can't, because the cost of storage is so exponential that it doesn't even make a business case. So you have to create other alternatives to do that. Either they build as much as required hydro dams where there's water, it's pumped up. It was done already in apartheid. They have a dam, they pump up water to the dam, fill the dam to its level. When it's needed, they produce that 2,000 megawatts by just letting the
Letting the
outlet.
water through.
The water goes through, it creates electricity.
That's it.
And then the turbines are powered, it creates electricity. When it's at the base of the, the lower dam, they pump it back at night when there is enough electricity.
So that is a way of saving.
So you can create those kind of more mechanisms. But who's building those power stations? Hydro battery dam is a power station. Nobody's building the power stations. The current battery usage, Eskom could easily say, guys, we want to take 30% of all residential use of our grid, which is 30% in Eskom's numbers. What we're going to do is we're going to subsidize you to put up solar, put up your wind. You can even put a small
Why are we struggling with something that simple? Because I'm solar powered, but if I have excess, I can't give it back
How much
to.
you paid?
It cost me too much.
The inhibitor is the cost.
Yeah.
So if we were a properly managed state, they would allow you to sell back to the grid.
That's it, yes.
By just refit. They call it a refit, right? Reverse billing. Yeah. So whatever you generate excess, you reverse, put it into the grid. And it's not a long grid. It's just in your neighborhood grid.
That's it, yes. I've been told that it's just my neighbor, really.
Yeah, they'll use it on the power line. So it refits back and then powers all other. And then your utility offsets it with a discounted bill to you. So if you have produced more than you use, they don't bill you. Instead, they pay you back. Or they give you credits.
It sounds so simple, but we seem to be struggling to implement something.
They don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying there's no will. You can have the premier, you can have the ministers, you can have all of these people talking big. But when it comes to action, they get stuck. And it's not science. It's just basic.
No. This one is not. I've had solar power for the past 8 years. I've always wondered why is this so difficult? Because every time you read up on it or you see even videos on it, most countries are giving back consumers
most people
their money.
Who have invested in this technology have actually created business out of it. Because the more you bill back into the utility, you reverse bill, the more money you make.
That's it.
Why are we not encouraging people? Is because there's no will. There is no will at all to empower basic things. I am for solar, I am for wind, I am for alternative technologies, but their scheme right now has got nothing to do with renewable energy. Most of the IPPs are just a leech in our economy because they want to be given 20-year power purchase agreements, tenders for 20 years to produce electricity which we're not even using. That's the only thing we're opposed.
Yeah.
But if they produce electricity that can be used by far-flung areas, townships, factories, by far-flung areas that have no electricity, they produce alternatives to what Eskom cannot do or what the municipalities cannot supply. You would have a good business case. It's supposed to be orientated on the market demand. And they charge good prices, they keep customers. But none of them are interested in that model. They just want to have sovereign guaranteed programs that pays them a dividend, and that money, most of it goes out abroad.
Is it a model that's worth thinking about for municipality to generate their own power?
If I was a mayor, I would flood every bloody building rooftop with
solar. Yes.
And if I was even smarter enough, I'll go get battery manufacturers and say to them, do a lease program. Produce batteries, put them in houses, whatever they store and use, charge them. Don't sell them a battery. Let them lease energy.
I've seen that program. Yes.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It does work, right?
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
So some of those things you don't need to buy and own. They just have an agreement. Your house is not going to move. I can assure you in South Africa. It's made out of bricks.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not a caravan. And that house, if I put an equipment like municipality has a meter in it, they have a water meter in it, you have your DSTV satellite dish in it, they can install all that.
They can install a battery.
Yeah. And say, listen, municipality says to you, guys, I can't provide you electricity between 8 to 10. What do? Thank you, God. I'm just going to switch on that. I've seen it in several estates. They pay a lease for their batteries and everything, or you buy a ready pack that gives you power backup, that kind of a thing. But you have to think at that level. Create new estates, new housing projects, new projects.
That are powered like that.
It creates new business people, entrepreneurs, people to make money. And most of it is run by cell phone app, man.
No, of course.
From a cell phone app, you can control it, run it and everything. The algorithm is all there.
Wow.
So Africans, our own barrier is ourselves and our ability to imagine beyond comprehension. I mean, that's all I could say. I think we must start assuming that we're white. So maybe we'll see a way of just doing it. Just assume I'm white and I'm going to pretend that I agree. And then that's the only way. Assume, one thing I learned about mind power is you internalize what you perceive. If I know David is brilliant in something, I go and steal your brilliance by just observing and doing exactly what you do.
That's it.
Emulate.
Yeah.
You don't have to be white. We're great as Africans. Why do I need to be white?
So we need black currents.
Thank you. Be great as an African.
Yeah.
Show off your capability and be demanding. You're a consumer. You're a commodity where people want to provide for you everything you require, but we don't take ourselves serious.
Give me as we conclude. Give me a perspective of this crystal ball of South Africa's future. It's a tricky one, because anything is possible.
True.
But being a proud South African who loves his country and wish it would work, better than it is now. What do you see when you climb on top of a mountain and look into the future of South Africa?
Oh, it's an incredible vista of unexplored opportunities. The future Africans, 5 years from now, will be extremely advanced people. And I'm not making it up because they have tapped into what is possible in the world. They know what is moving. And they're going to come to a point where they've had enough. I'm not talking about dependence on social grants and others, which is another issue we need to get rid of. Young future leaders have tasted first class, world class, and they want it. And the only way they're going to get it is to fight for it. And fighting for it means you have to now start replacing the current core leadership that is lethargic, that is imposing on us this very, very, backward ideas, to now a much more broadened, opened, new leadership that will seek new partnerships, local, global, regional, international, everywhere. And saying, guys, come work with us. We don't have the skill, yes, but we can acquire it. We've got the capability, we've got the land, we've got the resources. Start talking to us on those bases. Some people must start delegations and go plead to the Queen. Go march, first of all. We're good at marching. Go start a protest in Buckingham Palace. Make them feel uncomfortable as well. And then start demanding that this imposition of this rules that says we must live the most dredged dog-like life, which a dog in Europe cannot even live like us. It will protest. But we will live like that, right? You have to come to that level. And I'm saying that because I know our young people have the ability to decipher. My own child, your own child, they will never stoop up to nonsense. They show you in your own home. Don't have Wi-Fi for 1 hour.
They're upset.
You're trashed. You're gone. I mean, you'll feel bad. You'd rather get away and
What kind
run.
of father are you?
Yeah,
You don't take us serious.
Exactly. So that's what is going to
I was
come.
told by my nephew that I don't take them serious.
Because you didn't provide basics, right?
Yes.
Exactly. So the future of our young people, 5 years from now, are going to be extremely intolerant to the impasse, to the mess, to the nonsense. And if they're going to have to do it themselves, they're going to go out there and do it. So the future is bright. The current scenario of this chaos and mess, it's supposed to happen. For things to be revived, there must be a mess, they must collapse.
We must see the worst of the worst.
Everything must happen.
Yeah.
And in there, a renewal comes. And I believe we're in that renewal age where you would have a burst of new energy, even within the ruling party. They're fighting each other to a point where they have to destroy everything that's bad for something great to emerge.
Yeah.
Maybe a new leader. The current opposition parties.
I think they need a new way of thinking.
Yeah,
more than
the current opposition parties are producing some quite capable, but again, they become very distracted when they taste money, whiskey and wine, and all the other
There's a car.
slay queen.
There's a car.
And the cars.
It's a Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah.
It's Kumbi like Mercedes-Benz.
No, it's
I don't know
called
what they
V-Class.
call it.
It's called a V-Class.
You know it better than
I
me.
know.
I know the bad word of it. The fucking car they call it.
that
I know
one.
that one.
Yeah, that one.
That car is a problem.
No, it's going to face out. Not all South African women are slay queens.
Well, that's true.
It's less than 1% of the population.
And it will over fades, and then you realize they are buffeted.
Thank you. When you get to that point where it's no longer fascinating and exciting, people want real. You want something that's stable, that's focused on what you want to achieve.
A Toyota.
I drive one. Of course, it's electric, but it's fine. It's still a Toyota. I enjoy it.
There you
It
go.
doesn't mean I don't enjoy other cars.
Yeah.
I even tell my friends, I said, guys, you must drive all the expensive cars. I'll drive with you. Because where I am, my aspirational values are not of flaunting. Of course, I have one or two nice good-looking cars. I have access to them.
Exactly.
I don't own them. It's not my cars. I don't care about it. But my vision and philosophy in life is to live a life of decency where I can say I've made my mark and I've done it in my own terms. Remember you asked me why? Why didn't you take up a job? Why didn't you take up? It's because I wanted to define myself as an African, black, and as a person. That is why I've even gone back to my roots. I'm a crown prince of my people. So if I have to transform, it must start with me. I must show that the petty people of Limpopo, Gasekhukhune, Nchabeleng, to be exact in terms of my family surname, in that geographic position, can taste what is better, what is opportunistically possible. And all we have to do is to support it as an effort. So young future Africans, I don't think are going to sit up for this nonsense. this mess. These
tell
leaders. I mean, right now they're showing you.
They'll tell you.
Cyril.
They'll tell you these.
Cyril went
ones.
to Northwest.
Oh no, they were told
showed him flames.
Away. Yes.
Ntlantla Lux goes and tells Bekele on the face that dude, it's not going to work like that. It's got to change.
Our generation is way more kinder.
You have, Julius, who can speak up on a platform and say it as it is. And you have many others. You have us in the energy who are very clear and succinct on what we know could be done.
Yeah.
So those voices are somehow converging without having to be structured. But
they're making their way to
the minute that
place.
happens, we'll see the explosion. But we have to have South Africa that's highly advanced, that's economically developed, that can rival against the Dubai. I've got no ambition to be showing off in Dubai. It's not my taste.
Yeah.
It's just horrid. I mean, half of it is a desert. Most of the time it's just blowing wind. It's hot.
However, they show us what they can do with nothing.
Possibility.
With nothing.
All of us are all clamoring to be there. But yet, you can get the same here in South Africa. All your shoreline has got Dubai capability.
That amazing shoreline.
Your inland, with all the fauna, vista, with all the natural possibility, with all the nature. Now imagine having Africans in their own suburbs, estates, towns, running their own industries and being champions of their own industries. As black, we're the majority people. We have to dominate. Imagine that.
I wonder, though, if we will continue to dominate our politics in the next 5 years.
They're all dying.
Yeah.
The current ones that are holding up power are over 70, most of them. And the 60-year-olds are seeing that this is not working.
Not
in the ANC, in everywhere.
Yeah.
All right? They're all dying. So they have to die as a crop because most of them are only there because if they had a pension that was consumerate, they would not be doing this mess.
It's too much work anyway.
It's too much work. So you need young energy. You need young people. And you need to be very clear about the vision. I come back to the vision aspect of it. We must transform our society and every angle of our lives, but it starts with ourselves.
Yeah.
We don't perfect that. I don't become a better version of a boy from Lubachom, where my boys, my hood, my community, when they see me, they say, we are going to be like him. And if not, we are going to model ourselves to be better than him. I've achieved nothing. I've achieved nothing. I'm not going to show off in Soweto and
No. What's the point?
What's the point? You're not competing with the real thing. The real thing is to show off how you can empower your own and bring about the development.
Showing off with a car is not showing off.
Means nothing.
Yeah.
I go in a car train. Why do I need a car now?
Jeez. We can go on forever. It's meant to be about power.
Yeah.
It's meant to be about electricity. But we touched on it in so many ways. There's Sheikhs is saying I should ask you about President's the President's smart city, and I was in some tiny little way involved in understand it.
We should encourage it.
We should encourage.
We should support Cyril in terms of his effort as the president.
It's not easy though.
Realize the smart city.
Yeah,
because it will make a massive difference. It will be one of the first cities built in South Africa post 1994. So whoever is the leader, whether it's Cyril or anybody.
What have we built post 94?
Nothing. We've destroyed. We've got potholes now. We built that.
We've destroyed a hospital.
Hospitals. We've just been able to dismantle and defragment as well as create chaos. Now we need to get back to the drawing table and say, how do we rebuild? How do we build new? How do we sharpen our focus on creating a visionary future? And I hope you can have more podcasts of clear, sober-minded visionaries, clear people who can articulate what's possible, because until and unless we know it's possible, it will never be possible. So we have to have mind people with strong mind power and strong resistance. Look, I get ostracized for some of the things I say.
Of course, you would.
I get, now and then blacklisted on massive platforms,
no, you would.
TV, radio.
Yeah.
They say this guy is, but I'm not doing it because I'm trying to clamor for attention. It's because I'm passionate about really lifting our people out of the clutches of this poverty. I've tasted it, Chief. I know how to sit in a restaurant and hold on that fucking knife and be able to swipe a card that goes through.
Yes, that you don't doubt.
And pay.
You don't doubt that it'll go.
Yes. Yeah, pay for a meal.
Yeah.
400 and 300 rand. It's a basic meal in South Africa. And I don't doubt that it will bounce. So why is it impossible for others to enjoy that same luxury?
Yeah.
Why must I be the only one?
It shouldn't even be a luxury.
Why should I be proud and say I'm the only one and I must be the only one? No, it shouldn't be like that.
It still depresses me when I see restaurants with a lot of white people and one black guy there in the corner there.
And you still feel unwelcome.
It's amazing. It's the most common image
change it.
that it's so sad.
You gotta change it. We gotta do something to flip the current status quo and saying, guys, our needs must come. Whether we do it by social processes, whether we pay people just to get into education, skills, qualifications, expertise, trades, ability. There's room for everyone.
Do you know, we spoke so much about the next generation, and do we have the education system that is fully well, I don't know, a mixture of one that can produce this amazing generation of kids who would say, time and they have something of value to offer?
We have. As long as our kids are going to the best schools now, it shows that the education system is still functional. We just have to make sure that the public system makes sure it supports the same ethos. Because private education doesn't.
It's this tiny.
It's that tiny. So it needs to be flipped and ensure that you can do what the other countries are doing. I mean, if you want the best education system in the world, I would say look to Singapore. And I'm saying that for a reason. Singapore has the most amazing educational system. Takes ordinary child, but makes them the most super brain child. But it's a sacrifice. A child in Singapore studies until 10 o'clock at night.
Jeez.
I'm not telling you things that are not
on a daily basis. Yes.
Right?
That means a sacrifice not only from the child, the parents as well.
They have a culture. There's a word. One day I'll remember it. But there's a word that says we are competitive people. So if I don't do it, nobody's going to do it. So every child is competitive and they push themselves. So they feel bad. Korea. If I get fired in a job in Korea, the likelihood of committing a suicide is high.
Sure.
90%. Because there is no room for failure. In Japan, the same thing. In China, I went to China. I asked the guy, I said, listen, an engineer who was driving a car. Why do you do this job? It's because I've just finished up whatever and I'm in the taxi. So he took me they have zones, right? And they pay you by zones. I think I paid 13 rands from here in Johannesburg to go to Pretoria. 13 rands, right?
Yeah.
So when I got there and I said, you know what, your service has been so exceptional. You've been a great driver. Can I give you more? This guy said to me, I don't want it. I said, but why? It's a gratuity from me. He says, no, I can't take more because there's a system whereby we're paid by the zones. And if I take more, I'm going to collapse the ecosystem that makes sure that we all can serve people who are in China and then make sure that we perpetuate the system we've created as a people. It's called the People's Republic for a reason. So I said, it's just a gift, man. I mean, he says, no, I would love to, but I can't. I did the same in a restaurant. They refused to take my money again because they know there is a system in place that works. If a good is one rand,
if you take extra, you're essentially changing the culture.
And on top of it, that extra, when you're getting an extra income from the government to subsidize your space, then you're stealing. And they refuse.
Yeah.
And I said, but nobody's watching you because I wanted to test their system. Go to everywhere. Singapore. They don't even allow people to spit on the street. It's a fine, imprisonment. You go to jail for years to spit.
I've seen in Guangzhou, there are marked points where they say spitting is prohibited. So I've seen that, yes.
So why are we living like we're in a zoo where we can do whatever we want and it's acceptable?
We are busy. We are busy.
That's what I'm saying. We must go back.
We are busy with other things.
Appreciation of who we are as a people. The minute we start being proud and start taking ourselves serious and say, no, guys, I don't think I can do this. I'm not going to accept it. And 100 of us say it. 1,000 of us support it. 100,000 of us back it up. We've got a revolution. We've got
a million of us say.
A million of us says, no, those guys are right.
Yeah.
We've got a revolution. We've got a movement.
And we don't do it here. We don't do it here.
Exactly. And we go and say, guys, now that we've achieved our goal, let's make an effort to make it great.
Yeah.
We will not have to do much.
I wonder how is this podcast going to do? I worry about it. It might just get you in prison if you were in a different country.
No, I'm okay. I think I've not done 27 years, so somehow I miss being in prison for reasons. That's why I can speak out.
Wow.
So if Mandela could do his 27 years,
surely you can pull it off.
haven't spent any night in prison.
Yes, so you're fine.
I think it will be fine for me to spend
Kenyan, no, but
years
don't worry.
for my revolutionary ideas.
We have when it comes to that, we have a very
and that's why I
good
said
country.
the president. I mean, between me and him, he knows I've got carte blanche to criticize him as much as I want, as much as I praise him.
Yes,
I've got carte blanche.
that's
The
true.
ministers, I've got carte blanche. I love all of them. They are my African brothers and they are my family. The ruling party, it's my family. It's my we all
So you
born in
voted
it.
for it at some point in
Cradle
your
to
life.
grave.
Yes.
Okay, I've been in this movement. We've lost families in the ANC, so they cannot alienate me out of it. Okay, the EFF is a son and a child of the African,
Of the
national
liberation.
all of the other splinters, except the white liberal parties and others who didn't agree with us. And that is why they do their own thing. They've got their AfriForum, they've got their Solidarity, they've got their Stellenbosch. They are not part of what we aspire for.
True.
Because they've achieved all of that. We are still getting to where they want to be. So we're not going to mix emotions. All blacks have got a similar struggle. Some might be different. You already are a billionaire. You don't have millionaire problems. But majority of us are not even in there.
No.
So our struggles are
Majority
common.
of us don't know where our next
Allow us
meal
the
is coming
space
from.
for self-expression. At least that's the only thing that's free. But beyond this, at least take our ideas and internalize them and implement them. And even if you don't, they're going to die. Let me tell you, it's guaranteed. Before I die or after I die, they're going to die. And at the end of the day, they're going to be accountable after their death to a reality that they will be questioned for what they have done or didn't do, either by ancestors or by God, whatever it is.
Something will.
Somehow they're going to respond to whatever belief system they have. If it is ancestors, they're going to answer to the ancestors. If it is God, they're going to answer to God. If it is to do with the so-called universe, they're going to answer to the universe, whatever it is. But you are going to be held accountable. And that account is to ask yourself, did you do your best?
Yeah.
Were you the best of person? Were you feeling good? We're created so good looking, beautiful, fluent. We can learn funny languages and be so amazing in it. I speak equally, Sepedi with an accent like I speak English. So it just means I could do anything, So
Wow.
shouldn't be limited.
Yeah.
And that is why I don't ascribe to this factional ideology mentality as well as this, tribalistic like tendencies of saying I belong to this and that. If you see my lifestyle, I socialize with everybody. All political parties I speak because my role as the CEO, as the president of Transform RSA, is to go beyond the isms. Work on one objective, transformation. And to do that, I have to understand everyone. I have to speak to everybody. White, colored, Africans, Indian,
Even the rate.
the plethora.
Everyone.
Even the rate. I'm kind to him. By now, we should have got that guy out of a job.
By now, we are too kind.
We're too kind. We're too tolerant.
Yeah.
But again, the setup.
No, you said it. You exposed us to ourselves.
Thank you.
Gore-
Must be open.
ra tlotsa.
We're hurt.
Yeah.
We're wounded. And we're disabled. But I think it's a point where we must, at that disability, stop it and then say, guys, but we have a lot of ability.
Do what a blind man would do.
Yes. Be the Andre Buchele.
Do something about our
Get your
disability.
disability into action and exploit it.
Usenganga utiak.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Kalebo. Wow. What an insightful one. It almost reminded me of Kanakmang Mohale. Bonang Mohale.
Mohale,
Yes.
good
It reminded me of Bonang Mohale. Very similar. He's passionate about the country. And he's like, "Yarr, I don't understand why we are stuck."
We must kick it into gear.
Yeah.
So much of value. But I think there are fundamentals that needs to be done. We have to go back to the negotiations.
Yeah.
We are still not free from the British and their yoke of colonization on South Africa.
It's not even a dotted line, this.
And we must go back to them and say,
Yeah.
cut us a slack. And they will if they are, they don't have malice probably, but they don't know that we want these things as well.
It's like we haven't cried. So I'm assuming
make them aware.
Sharp.
Yeah, right now we're just saying it in all other manner. Down with what doesn't make sense. Go confront the oppressor, the perpetrator.
They'll say, I didn't think you were that serious.
We are serious. Cut us a slack. We want a share of this economy. We want a share of a good life in South Africa. I want to live in a decent home. And so are all my relatives. I can't be the only one who rolls in with a car in December or Easter. And everybody must be looking up to me as if like I've arrived from heaven. It must be common among us.
We can't still be celebrating Adil Nchabeleng is the first to buy a car.
Do you know, it was such a big thing that I was among the most first. I mean, my family has been in the liberation struggle, but we're never on television. But I was among the first.
In the family?
In the family.
What's on TV?
To be on television regularly. Not even to just be on regularly. So you become a celebrity out of stupid things like that. Just regular featuring. Yeah. And
because what's on TV?
Thank you. It's a big thing. So if it's such a big thing, let's cross this Rubicon of mediocrity and make it normal.
We can go on forever. I think you're an amazing South African, and
David,
your passion for this country is amazing.
Your platform,
your
platform, put it on fire.
Don't
Keep going. Yeah, keep it on fire and let it be blazing, so that at least there's that room
for these
free thinkers.
That's why I've started this, because normally I've been talking to, I call them legends, South Africans who have done incredible things. Your Kaifa Semenya as an example. I'm still hoping to get him here. Those types. And I've decided, let's do a knowledge bank of some sort where we just come and we speak to ordinary South Africans who tell us ordinary areas of life that they are interested in. And they'll tell us something that
how they
we
can
might
make
find.
it great.
Absolutely.
How they can make it great. That's all we want.
That's it.
King David Studio Podcast.